Chapter 219. Yintian Kingdom, Monarch City. With the arrival of the royal banquet, there were more and more geniuses in Monarch City. Of course, only a small number of people attended the royal banquet. The rest of the geniuses were only there to watch the fun. Most of them were there to cheer for the geniuses from their sex, causing the inns in Monarch City to be overcrowded. Where did junior brother Lin go? The royal banquet is starting today. Monarch City Relay Station. Huang Tianxiao, Chu Yinyan, and the sect master all had anxious looks on their faces. On the first day in Monarch City, Lin Yi left with Silent Soul. They couldn't stop them, but they told Lin Yi to return before the royal banquet started. But a few days had passed, and Lin Yi was nowhere to be seen. The royal banquet was about to start. Let's wait a little longer. You know the strength of the others? More or less. Theta, Scarabii situation. Just take it as a chance to broaden your knowledge. The sect master said. Compared to the geniuses from other sects and families, the Shengling heavenly sect's 3 slots were a far cry. Lin Yi's talent and strength were decent, but his realm was too low. If Lin Yi reached the celestial realm, he might have a chance. But now, Lin Yi had no chance at all. There was a difference in realm. They were all geniuses, but the difference in realm couldn't be made up. Initially, the sect master didn't have much hope. But now that Lin Yi had left, he felt sorry for Lin Yi. He missed a chance to broaden his knowledge. Time passed by, second by second. Noon. Huang Tianxiao and the other 2 were getting impatient and regretful. Just as the 3 of them were about to head to the plaza where the royal banquet was being held, Lin Yi and solitary spirits figures appeared before them. The 3 of them could not help but reveal a hint of joy on their faces. Although they didn't expect Lin Yi to get a slot, at least they didn't have to wait anymore. Sect Master, Senior Brother Huang, Senior Sister Chu. Sorry to keep you waiting. Lin Yi felt awkward when he saw the Sect Master, Huang Tianxiao, and Chu Yunyan waiting for them. Originally, the timing had been calculated. However, he did not expect that. He was teleported out of the Heavenly Fox clan in the wrong direction. This made Lin Yi and Silent Soul even further away from the King's City. The 2 had no choice but to speed up and try to get back to the King's City before the banquet started. After 2 days of flying, they finally made it back. It's good that you're back, the sect master said. Then, he walked towards the front of the inn. Chu Yinyan and Huang Tianxiao also bid farewell to Lin Yi and left with the sect master. Lin Yi smiled and hurriedly followed. Today was the start of the royal banquet. Today, 3 people would be selected. These 3 people would be able to enter the Grand Xiao World Ruins and obtain resources and experience. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing inside. Instead, it was filled with challenges and competition. Only true monstrous geniuses could survive and grow. Senior Sister, where will the royal banquet be held? What news did you get? Share it. Lin Yi asked with a smile as he walked to Chu Yunyan's side. He left after coming to the King's City. These few days, he didn't know the situation in the King's City at all. Chu Yunyan should have heard some news about the royal banquet in the King's City. These few days, you've had enough fun. Chu Yunyan's beautiful face revealed a sweet smile. Although she wasn't as stunning as Silent Soul, nor as pure and seductive as Silent Soul, she was still one of the top 10 goddesses of the Shengling Heaven sect. She was a 1 in a million beauty. In her opinion, Lin Yi must have gone out to have fun these few days. She couldn't be blamed for thinking so. The main reason was that Lin Yi had a beautiful woman by his side, Silent Soul. With such a beautiful woman by his side, it would be strange if people didn't think so. Senior Sister, you're thinking the wrong way. These few days, I have some things to deal with. Lin Yi was stunned. Black lines appeared on his face. This beautiful Senior Sister really knows how to think. The royal banquet. It will be held in the King's City Square. There are a total of 62 spots in the entire Yintian Kingdom. Each of them is a monstrous expert. All the monstrous experts competing for the spots have already arrived. The royal family wants to choose 3 people from the 62 monstrous experts. At that time, they will enter the Great Xiao World Ruins together with the monstrous experts of the Empire. Chu Yunyan didn't talk about the topic at the beginning. Moreover, she wasn't very familiar with Chu Yunyan. She changed the topic and told Lin Yi about the royal banquet. How will these 3 spots be chosen? Lin Yi followed beside Chu Yunyan. A faint body fragrance reached his nose, making Lin Yi restless. However, he didn't have any thoughts about Chu Yunyan, and at this time, his attention was completely focused on the news of the royal banquet. Elimination system. Only the royal family knows the specifics. The royal feast this time is just a game for the 2 princes and a few peerless geniuses. The others are basically supporting them. Chu Yinyin smiled. She knew that with her talent and strength, she couldn't get one of the 3 spots. She came here mainly to broaden her horizons. It seems that the competition is still very fierce. Lin Ye's lips curled into a smile. His strength was now several times stronger than when he was in the Shengling heavenly sect. Although the competition was fierce, he didn't have no hope. Hearing Lin Ye's words, Chu Yunyin couldn't help but look at Lin Yi. Seeing the confidence on Lin Ye's face, she couldn't help but be stunned. This junior brother wasn't an arrogant person. Could it be that he really had some confidence? Along the way, the pedestrians hurried. Their destination was the King's City Square. Today was the start of the royal banquet. It was one of the biggest events in the entire kingdom. The liveliness was unparalleled. The closer they were to the King's City Square, the more people there were. When Lin Yi and the others arrived at the King's City Square, there was already a sea of people. It was extremely difficult to get close to the square. After a full hour, they passed through the sea of people and arrived at the center of the square. King's City Square. It was 10 miles in diameter. It was 10 miles in diameter from north to south. Only the center was empty. It was crowded all around. Today, the royal banquet was held here. The center of the square was the place of competition. A space of 2 miles in length and width was empty. A mysterious formation shrouded this space to prevent the battle inside from affecting the spectators outside. 100 meters away from this space were rows of seats. The seats surrounded the space of competition. There were about 10,000 seats. Chapter 220. Looks like the royal feast is about to begin. Lin Yi mumbled to himself. He saw a crystal screen at the center of the square beside the array formation. The screens showed the names of the geniuses. First Prince, Third Prince, Seventh Prince, Bloodsore Moon, Frenzied Blade Lai Tenyu, Young Master Demon Blood, Young Master Nan Yang, Wang Tianziu, Jian Wu Shuang, Morong Yuelin. They were the most famous geniuses in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Out of the 62 crystal screens, 57 of them lit up, their names flashing. There were still 5 crystal screens with no names on them. Lin Yi, Chu Yunyan, and Huang Tianxiao's names were not on the screens. Go and report. Inject your genuine origin energy. Just as Lin Yi was feeling puzzled, the sect master's voice rang out, indicating for Lin Yi and the other 2 to report. It was only at this moment that Lin Yi finally understood. The geniuses participating in the royal feast would only have their names lit up when they were reported on the screens. Lin Yi and the other 2 nodded. They walked toward the center of the plaza. They came to a screen that was not lit up and gently placed their palms on it. Boom! There was a loud sound. Suddenly, a ray of light shot out from the screen. The light shot up to 1,000 meters high. Everyone within dozens of miles of the plaza saw it, which meant that there were geniuses present. Boom! Boom! Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan also activated their screens. Their names lit up. Countless eyes fell on the 3 of them. Most of the eyes were filled with disdain and contempt because there were the words Holy Soul Heaven Sect in front of their names, indicating that they were from the Holy Soul Heaven Sect. The Holy Soul Heaven Sect was a 5th-rank sect, and it was ranked very low among the 5th-ranked sects in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. They had not received a single entry in the past 1,000 years. Creation Realm. Am I seeing things? It's really Creation Realm. The Holy Soul Heaven Sect is regressing. 17 years old and in the Creation Realm. It's one thing for the Shengling Heavenly Sect to waste a spot, but isn't it a bit too much for them to fool around with the banquet? I have to report this to His Majesty, the Wise King. Sigh, the Shengling Heavenly Sect must have cheated. Although the Shengling Heavenly Sect doesn't stand a chance, They can't just call a random disciple to deal with the royal family's feast. On the square, the moment Lin Yi activated his cultivation method to activate the crystal screen, all the powerhouses present saw through his cultivation realm. A 17-year-old youth at the 8th level of the creation realm. This was something that had never happened before in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. This was completely fooling him. Every single one of those who participated in the royal banquet was a monstrous expert of the heaven realm. When had there ever been a creation realm cultivator? And this time, the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect had sent a creation realm cultivator to participate. In the eyes of all the experts, the Shengling Heavenly Sect didn't send a creation realm cultivator to participate in the competition, but purely to gain experience. For a time, countless experts were discussing animatedly. Lin Yi had become the focus of countless experts. Contempt and disdain. At this moment, he had become a clown in the eyes of all the experts. Sect Master. After Lin Yi and the other two activated the crystal screen, they returned to the Sect Master's side. Although the Shengling Heavenly Sect was nothing compared to the other 5th-grade sects in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, it was still a colossal existence in the entire Cloud Sky Kingdom. Naturally, their seats were arranged for them. Lin Yi and the other two were seated near the Sect Master. Silent Soul stood beside Lin Yi. Countless eyes were looking at Silent Soul with amazement. In their eyes, there was amazement and confusion, but more than that, there was envy, jealousy, and greed. They could not believe that a young man in the blessed realm, who looked ordinary and had the air of a scholar but did not have the air of a powerful warrior, would have a stunning woman by his side. This woman was unparalleled in her beauty. She was pure and seductive. All the men who saw her were tempted. However, this beautiful woman was with a piece of trash. It seemed that the beautiful woman was the young man's maid. Otherwise, she wouldn't be standing beside him. A flower stuck in a pile of cow dung. Yes, that was it. Junior brother Lin, you've become the target of public criticism. Chu Yinyin looked at Silent Soul and said to Lin Yi. She and Lin Yi sat together. Lin Yi and Silent Soul were the center of attention. Naturally, she was also the center of attention. At this time, no one wanted to be the center of attention. In her heart, she couldn't help but blame Silent Soul. When a beautiful woman met another beautiful woman, she would naturally be jealous. In front of the young master, the so-called monstrous experts are just ants. Silent Soul saw that Lin Yi didn't say anything. She opened her mouth to answer. If Chu Yunyan wasn't Lin Ye's senior sister, she wouldn't even bother to talk to her. She was the saintess of the Heavenly Fox clan and had incredible talent. Her cultivation strength had reached the peak of the celestial realm. It was enough to fight against a normal half-saint. You're so confident in my junior brother Lin? Chu Yinyin said coldly. Hostility gradually rose between the two of them. What do you think? Silent Soul's beautiful face had a sweet smile. She wasn't afraid of Chu Yinyan's identity at all. Chu Yinyan was the senior sister of the Holy Soul sect, but Silent Soul was also a disciple of the Holy Soul sect. Her current strength was enough to kill Chu Yunyan. Boom! Boom! Chu Yunyan's face was like frost. Her cold eyes swept across Silent Soul. Just as she was about to scold Silent Soul, a destructive holy aura descended from the sky. The holy aura crushed the entire space. All the experts present, whether they were blessed realm, celestial realm, or even half-saints, faced with this holy aura, they couldn't help but lower their heads. This holy aura was not only domineering, but also had the supreme aura of a king. Not bad. This was the aura of a king. Only the ruler of a country could have such an aura. The aura of a superior was something that other experts couldn't have. The moment the holy aura descended, a middle-aged man with a crown on his head and an embroidered robe appeared in the sky in the square of Yunwu City. His entire person was like a proud ruler between heaven and earth. His eyes were as sharp as swords, and everywhere he passed, everyone lowered their heads. Beside him, there were a few young men and some peerless experts. Greetings, Your Majesty, Wisdom King. Greetings, Your Majesty, Wisdom King. Greetings, Your Majesty, Wisdom King. At this moment, all the experts in the square of Yunwu City bowed to the middle-aged man. The half-saints cupped their fists and bowed. The other experts all half-knelt. Everyone, please rise. In the air, the middle-aged man in the embroidered robe waved his hand gently. The endless holy aura disappeared, and the aura of a king grew stronger. His voice was like an imperial edict. Hearing this voice, the pressure on everyone's body disappeared. He was the current ruler of the kingdom of Cloud Sky, His Majesty Wisdom King. Chapter 2:21. The arrival of King Ming was welcomed by all the experts. His aura was unparalleled. King Ming signaled the experts present to stand down. He landed on the square and walked to the main seat. The few young men and peerless experts who came with him also walked to their seats. They only dared to sit after King Ming took his seat. This was out of respect for King Ming. King Ming was not only the king of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, he was also a peerless expert. In the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, there were less than 5 people who could defeat him. The royal feast begins. Under His Majesty Wisdom King's instructions, an old man beside him announced loudly. He announced the start of the royal feast. This old man's background was not simple either. He was Di Shiyu, the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. He came from the Tianyang Empire. He was not only a minister, but also an envoy sent by the Tianyang Empire to the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. He was here to monitor the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Whoosh! Whoosh! Hearing Di Shiyu's words, the first prince was the first to stand up. His body flashed, and he appeared under the crystal screen. Then, the other 2 princes also appeared under their crystal screens. After them, Yu Qianjiao, young Master Demon Blood, and the others also appeared. The appearance of each of them caused the square to erupt into cheers. Because they were the most talented experts of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, they could suppress this small era. Lin Yi, Chu Yunyan, and Huang Tianxiao. The 3 of them also came under their crystal screens. 62 monstrous geniuses were all present. The royal feast will select the 3 most talented experts to go to the Tianyang Empire. This is a competition of opportunity and creation. I hope you will show your abilities and not regret it for the rest of your life. The royal feast will be fair and open. The winner of this competition will be determined by the points obtained. The full score is 10 points. The first round will be elimination. 12 of the 62 people will be eliminated. In the space, there will be 10 lights of combat power. Those who obtain the lights will receive 1 point. The upper limit is 1 point. It will not stack. Di Shiyu's body flashed. He appeared in the air, not far from the array in the center of the square, and said loudly. As he finished speaking, he pointed his finger. A mysterious power shot out from his fingertips. Immediately, 10 fist-sized balls of light appeared in the center of the square, enveloped by the array formation. The ball of light floated in the air, shining continuously. Di Shiyu's explanation was simple and clear. Everyone heard it clearly and knew the rules of this royal banquet. In order to become the strongest 3, they had to go through layers upon layers of tests and battles. The first round was not only an elimination system, but also a competition for points. Although it was only 1 point, this 1 point was very important. Voila, as soon as Di Shiyu's words faded, the 60 crystal screens burst out with a dazzling light. The radiance enveloped the 62 monstrous experts. In the next second, the 62 monstrous experts all entered the fighting ring in the middle of the square. The fighting ring, which was 2 miles long and wide, was covered by a formation. All the monstrous geniuses had just entered the fighting ring. He couldn't help but grunt in agreement. His face revealed a shocked and dignified expression, and his body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Lin Yu was aghast. They were shocked at the same time. Gravity. He didn't expect that on such a simple fighting ring, there would be gravity suppression. The space of 2 miles around the fighting ring was filled with terrifying gravity. This made the competition even more difficult for the experts. This, I want one. Destroy the rest. In the fighting ring, the first to make a move was the eldest prince. The eldest prince took a step forward. Under the pressure of gravity, his speed was extremely fast, which showed how powerful he was. With one step, he crossed 100 meters. He appeared in front of a ball of combat power and reached out to grab it. At the same time, a terrifying saber intent burst out. The saber intent turned into hundreds of destructive saber lights. The saber lights slashed toward the other 9 balls of combat power. He wanted to get 1 point and destroy the other 9 balls of combat power so that no one else could get 1 point. Domineering, powerful, suffocating. However, no one was disgusted because the eldest prince was a monstrous expert. He had the qualifications and ability to do so. Big brother, this is not good. The corners of the third prince's mouth curled into a smile. He threw out a punch toward the saber lights from afar. The saber lights that were about to destroy the balls of combat power were shattered. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the ball of combat power that he had his eyes on. He reached out to grab it with a confident smile on his face. "This is mine," said Lin Feng. Young Master Nan Yang grabbed toward a ball of combat power from afar. The unparalleled power shattered the saber lights unleashed by the eldest prince. At the same time, the eldest prince, the third prince, and the 7th prince, young Master Nan Yang, young Master Demon Blood, Yu Qianjiao, and Lai Tenyu began to fight for the balls of combat power to get 1 point. They wanted to win with an absolute advantage and get one of the 3 spots. Other than them, there were other monstrous experts that began to fight for the balls of combat power as well. The movements of those who were weaker would become sluggish under the gravity of the spatial battle platform. Huang Tianxiao spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was thrown away in a strange manner. In the end, he fell out of the array. The moment he fell out of the array, the crystal screen that showed his name also lost its light. After Huang Tianxiao, a monstrous expert from a 6th rank family was hit by the eldest prince's attack. He was also thrown out of the array. The crystal screen that showed his name also lost its light. As time passed by, one monstrous expert after another was attacked or kicked out by gravity. Chu Yinyin was also kicked out of the array. Dongwu Xuejian, 12 people have been eliminated in the first round. 2 people from your Shengling Heavenly Sect were kicked out. Not far from the Shengling Heaven Sect Master, an old man in his 50s said. His face was filled with schadenfreude. Dongwu Xuejian was the Shengling Heaven Sect Master. Zhong Wushu, are you confident that your Taiyu sect can get one of the 3 spots? This is only the first round. Even if my Shengling Heavenly Sect is eliminated, your Taiyu sect will be eliminated sooner or later. Don't gloat over my misfortune. It won't be too late to be happy after your Taiyu sect gets a spot. The Shengling Heaven Sect Master's face was calm. He already knew the outcome before he came. However, he was still surprised that 2 people were eliminated in the first round. Hearing the sect master of the Taiyu sect laugh at him, he couldn't help but feel angry, but he didn't show it on his face. Humph, at least my Taiyu sect didn't get eliminated in the first round. By the way, your Shengling Heaven sect still has a little guy who hasn't come out. How could you let a little guy in the creation realm participate in the royal banquet? Haha. That little guy from your Shengling Heaven sect wants to compete for a battle strength light. What joke, ha! Zhong Wushu was almost choked to death by the sect master's words. He was very unhappy, and his expression turned ugly. As he spoke, he looked at the situation inside the array. At this moment, he couldn't help but laugh. He saw that the young man in the creation realm from the Shengling Heaven sect was not kicked out of the array. Instead, he walked toward Jian Wushuang and looked at the battle strength light in Jian Wushuang's hand. He was going to snatch Jian Wushuang's battle strength light. Chapter 222. Zhong Wushu, your Taiyu sect is just a bunch of trash. At least, my Saint Soul Heaven sect has the guts to fight for the battle light. The sect master also noticed the situation in the formation space. Seeing Lin Yi walking towards Jian Wushuang, he knew that Lin Yi might try to snatch Jian Wushuang's battle light. Although he knew that Lin Yi had almost no chance, he was satisfied. At least, Lin Yi had the guts to do so. That creation realm cultivator wants to fight with Jian Wushuang? He's from the Saint Soul Heaven sect. Haha, a creation realm cultivator also came to the imperial banquet. A creation realm cultivator came to the imperial banquet. I'm speechless. Jian Wushuang must be furious. Of course he's furious. If someone else came to snatch his battle light, it would be fine. But now, it's a creation realm cultivator. This is an insult. I'm sure Jian Wushuang will kill him with one strike. There were hundreds of thousands of experts in the square. All eyes were on the formation space in the center of the square. At this moment, they all saw Lin Yi walking towards Jian Wushuang. This scene was undoubtedly a visual shock to the experts present. A creation realm cultivator coming to the imperial banquet was already shocking. Now, not only was he not eliminated, but he also wanted to snatch Jian Wushuang's battle light. This was a little too unrealistic. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Idiot. Overestimating himself. Overestimating himself. Idiot. In the formation space, the remaining experts could not help but smile disdainfully when they saw Lin Yi's actions. They rarely looked at Lin Yi. At this moment, in their eyes, Lin Yi was worse than a clown. He wanted to play to the gallery and attract more people's attention. But in the end, he came here to court death. At this moment, more and more experts looked at Jian Wushuang. They all felt sorry for Jian Wushuang. It was an absolute humiliation for Jian Wushuang to meet such an idiot. You want the battle force light in my hand? Jian Wushuang's cheeks were as sharp as a knife, cold and ruthless. It was like a murderous sword. His gaze was sharp as he looked at Lin Yi. There was no change in his expression at all. The corners of his mouth twitched as he asked coldly, "The battle power light in your hand. I'll take it. You have two choices and two endings. First, give me the combat power light, and you can stay. 2. I will personally take it from your hands, and you will be eliminated." Lin Yi approached Jian Wushuang step by step. His hands were behind his back. His entire person was as calm as the wind, and there was a calm smile on his face. The faint voice was amplified 100 times through the array and spread throughout the entire square. All the experts who were watching the show heard it clearly. Instantly, all the experts were petrified for a second. He was too good at pretending. There was no one else who could pretend to be so nonchalant. If it had been the first prince and the others who had spoken to him in such a way, they would have believed it. After all, the first prince and the others were terrifyingly powerful. However, the young man from the Holy Soul sect was only in the creation realm. Among all the competitors, he was undoubtedly a joke. However, this joke-like guy was still pretending in front of Jian Wushuang. Ha ha ha. Not only is he ignorant, but he is also stupid. How could the Holy Soul sect let such an idiot participate in the royal banquet? Jian Wushuang must have broken down at this moment. Anyone would have broken down after meeting such an idiot. The square was filled with laughter. Even the peerless experts sitting around the array space couldn't help but feel speechless. For a moment, countless gazes looked at Dong Wushuejian. Dong Wushuejian's face was numb. His heart was about to break down. This Lin Yi was too arrogant. How could he be so stupid to provoke Jian Wushuang? Of course, he wasn't afraid of His Majesty Ming Wang from the Cloud Sky Kingdom, because Lin Yi was the strongest person in the younger generation of the Holy Soul sect. It was just that his cultivation realm was a little low. Could he be blamed for this? Besides, there was no rule that the participants of the royal banquet had to be in the celestial realm. I, Jian Wushuang, have lived for 40 years. I have killed countless geniuses. I didn't expect such an idiot like you to provoke me. Take my sword, and I'll let you stay. Jian Wushuang had an innocent look on his face. Anger was no longer enough to describe him. The killing intent in his heart surged violently. Although he couldn't really kill his opponent on the battle stage, he could teach him a lesson. As he spoke, an unparalleled sword essence rushed into the sky. Boom! Sword essence. The peak of sword essence. For a moment, within 100 meters of Jian Wushuang, there was a destructive sword essence. The sword essence twisted and tore the space apart. It formed a terrifying sword world. A pure white longsword appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, floating in the air and constantly spinning. It emitted an unparalleled power and sword light that made people's hearts tremble. 100 inscriptions, saint weapon, yes. It was 100 inscriptions, saint weapon. Originally, he didn't need to use 100 inscriptions, saint weapon to deal with the trash in the creation realm. However, he had been a sword all his life and only had one sword in his life. At this moment, he only had this 100 inscriptions, saint weapon. Unparalleled saint sword. Jian Wushuang's unparalleled saint sword. It's his honor to be killed by the unparalleled saint sword. Jian Wushuang is really angry. Seeing Jian Wushuang use the unparalleled saint sword. Countless monstrous experts who knew Jian Wushuang's background started to discuss. The power of the unparalleled saint sword was indescribable. The only thing that was certain was that among the young monstrous experts, or the entire celestial realm, there were very few people who could take a hit from the unparalleled saint sword. At this moment, Jian Wushuang used the unparalleled saint sword. Lin Yi, this trash, was dead. He was dead meat. Lin Yi was dead. This was the thought in all the experts' minds. Of course, there was one person who didn't think so. She was naturally Silent Soul. What I'm feeling now is what you're feeling now. Lin Yi looked at Jian Wushuang's sword essence, an unparalleled saint sword. His face was still calm. He continued to move forward step by step, getting closer and closer to Jian Wushuang. From the beginning to the end, he was still calm and collected, without a trace of emotion. It was as if he was taking a stroll in his own backyard. Die! Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Endless sword essence broke out. He reached out to grab the long sword and slashed it out. Suddenly, the whole space collapsed. Unparalleled sword light, and sword light rolled toward Lin Yi. Wherever the sword light and sword light passed, the space turned into nothingness. This formation space was completely destroyed by the sword light and sword light. Celestial Realm 5 Qi Yang Peak. Unparalleled sword principle, unparalleled attack. With one sword, all things were destroyed. On the square, all the experts felt their hearts tremble. Even the experts at the peak of the celestial being realm were shocked. The power of Jian Wushuang's sword was enough to kill any expert in the celestial being realm who had reached the 5 Qiyang realm. It could even kill the existence of the origin returning realm. In an instant, the sword light and sword light shrouded the sky above Lin Yi. No one had any thoughts or suspense in their hearts. Lin Yi was dead. No surprise. In front of me, you don't deserve to use a sword. Under the endless sword light and sword light. Chapter 223. You don't deserve to use a sword in front of me. His voice was still calm. It resounded throughout the square. This sentence shocked all the experts. Countless experts felt that there was something wrong with their ears. They thought that they had misheard. At this time, he was still so ignorant and arrogant. He dared to say that Jian Wushuang didn't deserve to use a sword in front of him. What could be more arrogant and ignorant than this? Nothing. No one could be more arrogant and ignorant than this sentence. For a moment, all the experts sighed. But then, the millions of experts who were watching the show were completely stunned. They saw that Lin Ye's body exploded with a shocking sword essence. It was also the peak of 10th level sword essence, but it was many times stronger than Jian Wushuang's peak of 10th level sword essence. It was many times stronger. The soaring sword essence raged between heaven and earth. The earth trembled and the formation kept shaking. With him as the center, the sword essence instantly spread out. Lin Yi floated in the air. He was like a divine sword standing between heaven and earth, unparalleled in the world. A slender long sword appeared in front of Lin Yi. The long sword, 100 inscription saint weapon, rushed out and crushed the space. Crash! Lin Yi grabbed the sky moon sword. He slashed out. The unparalleled sword light, with a destructive sword essence, split Jian Wushuang's sword light in half. A crack appeared. Lin Yi took the sky moon sword and turned into an unparalleled sword light, penetrating the space. He appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Then, the unparalleled sword light cut Jian Wushuang in half and appeared behind him. At this moment, the sword light in the formation space disappeared. Everything returned to normal. Lin Ye's body landed, holding the sky moon sword in one hand. The other hand slowly grabbed the battle light in Jian Wushuang's hand. Jian Wushuang's body was split in half. In an instant, the blood curtain rushed to the sky and he disappeared. The crystal screen that showed Jian Wushuang dimmed. Jian Wushuang was killed. This was the end. Jian Wushuang didn't really die. In the formation space, those who died in battle would not really die. They would just be kicked out of the formation space. Poof! Outside the formation, Jian Wushuang spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale and powerless. Jing silence. The entire King City Square was silent at this moment. This silence was very strange and oppressive. It was so quiet that it was frightening. All the experts' mouths were wide open. His eyeballs were about to pop out. This scene was beyond their imaginations. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that the ending would be like this. The young man, who was at LV8 Creation Realm, had killed Jian Wushuang, who was known as one of the top 10 monstrous experts in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Who was the real monster here? Who was the true expert here? Who was the true sword expert? In front of Lin Yi, all the powerhouses could only be stunned. The contrast that Lin Yi brought to them fiercely shocked their minds. Previously, they had said that Lin Yi was trash and came to be funny, but in the next second, the result was beyond everyone's imagination. Until this moment, countless experts understood that from the beginning to the end, the young man at LV8 Creation Realm did not take Jian Wushuang seriously at all, because he was the true genius in sword principle. However, a young man at LV8 Creation Realm, how could he kill a genius in sword principle who was at the peak of the Rising Sun realm? No one could figure it out. They did not dare to imagine. Sure, am I seeing things? This is too shocking. Jian Wushuang was killed in an instant. A LV8 Creation Realm expert killed a genius in Celestial Realm in an instant? Is the world crazy, or am I crazy? Am I hallucinating? Who can tell me? Pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. Damn, this is too cruel. The Xingling Heaven sect has such a genius. Jian Wushuang is one of the top 10 monstrous experts in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. How could he be killed in an instant? In the square, countless experts recovered from shock and reacted. Suddenly, there was a lot of discussion, causing the square to be in an uproar. All the experts focused their gazes on Lin Yi. At this moment, the way they looked at Lin Yi was completely different. Previously, when they looked at Lin Yi was a clown, an ignorant clown. Now, when they looked at Lin Yi, he was a genius, a real genius who could kill Jian Wushuang in an instant. In the seats around the formation space, the famous peerless experts of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom were extremely surprised. They were the happiest. It was none other than Sect Master Dongwushuejian. He really did not expect Lin Yi to be so strong. The first round is over. With Jian Wushuang out, the number of eliminated people reached 12. Dishiyu loudly announced the end of the first round. They did not expect the first round of the royal feast to be so exciting. Schwa schwa, schwa schwa in the formation space. 50 monstrous experts were swept by the magical light and pulled out of the formation space, appearing under their respective crystal screens. Previously, there were 62 people, but now there were only 50. Lin Ye's performance became one of the few that attracted the most attention. It would be strange if no one paid attention to Jian Wushuang in an instant. In the first round, 12 people are eliminated. His Royal Highness the First Prince gets 1 point. His Royal Highness the Third Prince gets 1 point. His Royal Highness the Seventh Prince gets 1 point. Yu Qianjiao gets 1 point. Lin Yi gets 1 point. Dishiyu announced the result loudly. Among the 62 contestants, after the first round, only 50 remained. Among them, 10 of them had earned 1 point. When his voice fell, Yi Zichen's voice fell. The crystal screens of the 10 monstrous experts who got 1 point burst out a ray of light. The light rushed up to a height of 10 meters. The light did not dissipate, but was extremely stable. Junior Brother Lin is indeed monstrous. I did not expect Junior Brother Lin to kill Jian Wushuang in an instant. In the seats, Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan were shocked to the extreme. They knew how terrifying the erased space was. Just the gravity alone was enough to kick them out. However, Lin Yi killed Jian Wushuang in an instant and stole Jian Wushuang's battle strength light. They could imagine how terrifying Lin Yi's strength was. He only got 1 point in the first round. Humph. Not far away, Zhong Wushu, the sect master of the Taiyu sect. His face was extremely ugly. He had been laughing at the Holy Soul Heaven sect, but in the next second, Lin Yi killed Jian Wushuang in an instant and got 1 point. This made his face burn. Hearing Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan praise Lin Yi, he became even more annoyed. He felt even more annoyed. He couldn't help but open his mouth. In the end, he even snorted. Immediately, many peerless experts and monstrous experts nearby looked at Zhong Wushu. Zhong Wushu, don't you have any shame? The sect master's face was full of smiles. At this moment, he was extremely happy. He was in a better mood than ever, although Lin Yi only got 1 point in the first round. Chapter 224. The first round was so exciting that it was beyond everyone's imagination. A young man at LV8 Creation Realm. It was a miracle that he killed Jian Wushuang with 1 strike. Countless experts were shocked. They didn't know how Lin Yi had done it. Countless pairs of eyes were constantly sizing Lin Yi up in Monarch City Square, causing Lin Yi to become the focal point of Monarch City Square. Even the other demonic geniuses participating in the competition had begun to pay attention to him. The second round of the royal feast begins. Dishiyu's voice was like a bell. His voice spread throughout the Monarch City Square, and all the experts heard it clearly. After the announcement of the second round, countless experts were curious about what the second round would be like. The second round should be more exciting than the first round. It's worth looking forward to. I wonder if the creation realm from the Shengling Heaven sect can make it through the second round. If the rules are like the first round, he might make it through the second round. The first prince and the others probably won't attack him first. Of course, unless they know his true strength, they won't attack him easily. Countless discussions were heard. The topic of discussion was mostly about Lin Yi. It wasn't surprising. After all, Lin Yi's existence was beyond the expectations of countless experts. 20 people will be eliminated in the second round. Similarly, 1 point can be obtained in the second round. The upper limit of the Intent Realm battle is 1 point. Dishiyu announced the rules of the second round. All the experts listened carefully. Soon, they knew the specifics of the second round. The second round was also a battle, but this time, it wasn't a battle of swords, spears, swords, halberds, fists, or feet. It was a battle of intent, which was a battle of aura and intent. This time, it was a battle of intent. What a pity. It is indeed a pity. Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan smiled bitterly after hearing the rules of the second round. The second round was completely suitable for them. Because they had cultivated in the Saint's Tomb, their intent had reached the peak of 100%, and they even obtained a realm. With such an intent realm, they could definitely get 1 point in this round. Unfortunately, they failed in the first round. So did the sect master. If the intent realm battle was in the first round, Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan would win without a doubt. Whoosh, whoosh, the light shone brightly and engulfed the 50 monstrous experts. In the next second, the 50 monstrous experts who entered the second round all appeared in the formation space. The gravity in the formation space was still the same, and it was even more terrifying than before. The 50 people each stood on one side. No one dared to make the first move. Boom! At this moment, the person who had obtained the battle strength light in the first round was suddenly enveloped by a sudden radiance. The radiance fused into his body and disappeared. The light was the light. Lin Yi and the other monstrous geniuses couldn't help but exclaim in surprise when the battle lights merged. After the light of the lights, their strength increased 10-inch, I forgot to tell you. The light, strength's battle strength. Every beam of combat strength light can increase one's combat strength by 10% until the end of the royal banquet. Of course, those who are kicked out of the competition will lose their combat strength light. Dishiyu's voice came. On his face, there was a cruel smile. He deliberately made people envious and shocked so that they would fight for the light strength at all costs. Sure enough, after he finished speaking, the expressions of all the experts changed. Battle strength increase. That's too terrifying. With a 10% increase in battle strength, the chances of winning are higher. I didn't expect the light strength to be so strong. Those who have the light strength can increase their battle strength by 10% out of thin air. This is a bit of cheating. Of course, only the real experts can get the light strength. Haha, the second round is even more exciting. Of course, they will definitely fight for the light strength crazily. Although the points can't be stacked, the battle strength can be stacked. All the experts heard Di Shiyue's words. They immediately thought of the exciting and tragic situation of the second round. The light strength. It could be said to be a cheating device in the royal feast. With such an effect, the competitors would fight to the death. After all, after the light strength was snatched, the strong would be stronger and the weak would be weaker. The gap was getting bigger and bigger. Boom, in the formation space, a soaring battle intent exploded. In an instant, the entire formation began to tremble. Countless discussions were interrupted. All the experts gathered their eyes at this moment, not wanting to miss any exciting part. At the same time, many sect masters and elders became nervous. This was related to the future of their sects. 50 monstrous experts, with monstrous battle intent, released their strongest essence. Essence at the peak of 100%. That's right, they were all at the peak of 100%. Sword essence, saber essence, fist essence, palm essence, spear essence. All kinds of essences filled the space, each fighting for space. For a moment, endless essences were fighting with each other. The combination of gravity and intent realm caused the space within the formation to become a world of destruction and chaos. The expressions of the monstrous experts were no longer as relaxed as before, because now their opponent was not one person. It was everyone. Essences were twisted and torn. One had to bear the attacks and oppression of everyone else's essences. The only thing they could do was to control their essences to attack the target, to control their essences to seize space to protect themselves. Insta-kill, Jian Wushuang. I have faith in you. The third prince was the closest to Lin Yi. His unparalleled saber essence was constantly twisting space and cutting it into pieces. Among the 50 monstrous experts present, he was definitely one of the strongest. Even if they were both at the peak of 100% essence, his saber essence had already reached the critical point. It had even surpassed the essence. The terrifying essence, with him as the center, blocked the essences within 100 meters. Although he couldn't be said to be at ease, but he was calm, without any panic. Seeing Lin Yi not far from him, he was curious. He wondered what the essence of a young man in the creation realm who could insta-kill Jian Wushuang. He thought of his powerful essence. Although he was not invincible here, he was definitely in an invincible position. The idea of testing Lin Yi grew stronger. As he spoke, the overwhelming saber essence pressed toward Lin Yi. His Highness the Third Prince wants me out. This is a loss of the steadiness of a prince. Lin Yi said lightly with a smile. The unparalleled sword essence stirred the space, resisting the invasion of the other monstrous experts' essences. Seeing the third prince's essence pressing toward him, he still did not have the slightest emotional fluctuation, even a little indifferent. This situation immediately made the third prince angry. Wasn't it obvious that he did not take him seriously? This kind of contempt almost made him furious. Countless experts in the square were shocked when they saw this scene. Chapter 225. Boom! His Royal Highness the Third Prince's overwhelming blade came crashing down on Lin Yi. In the face of the third prince's blade, Lin Yi didn't panic at all. Instead, he looked calm and relaxed. He was so calm that it made people feel suffocated. However, his own destructive sword intent soared to the sky. It crushed the external intent realm suppression. In an instant, the third prince's blade intent collided with Lin Yi's sword intent. To the surprise of all the experts, Lin Yi didn't fly out as they had imagined. Instead, he didn't move at all, and his expression didn't change at all. The third prince's blade intent was directly offset by Lin Ye's sword intent. Sure, countless experts couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw the outcome of the battle between Lin Yi and the third prince. They didn't expect it. They didn't expect Lin Yi to be so powerful that even the third prince couldn't shake him. After all, Lin Yi was only in the creation realm. Not bad. The third prince's face was calm. However, he was shocked. He naturally knew how terrifying his intent realm was. In the entire royal feast, there were no more than 10 people who could compete with him. He never expected that a young man in the creation realm would be able to offset his blade intent so easily. It seemed that the other party hadn't really made a move yet. If he really fought with his intent realm, it would be hard to say who would win. The third prince is also very strong. To be honest, I really don't want to fight with the third prince. I only need one of the 3 spots, so there's no need to fight with me. Lin Yi smiled. Unparalleled sword intent stirred the space. He grabbed the air with one hand. He grabbed a ball of battle force light that was floating in the air. Out of the 10 balls of battle force light, he had taken one. What was surprising was that no one dared to snatch his battle force light. However, countless experts couldn't help but snort coldly when they heard Lin Ye's words. It was extremely difficult to snatch one of the 3 spots. In their eyes, the 3 spots were only chosen between the 3 princes and young noble Devilblood's group. The others were only there to serve as a foil. Now, Lin Yi was shamelessly boasting about getting a spot. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. After obtaining 1 point, he became arrogant. He couldn't be considered a true demonic expert. Haha, ignorant. Frenzied Blade Light Tenyu looked at Lin Yi with disdain and said loudly, "In this world, only he, Frenzied Blade, could be so arrogant. As for the others, they couldn't be too arrogant. Furthermore, he could not be arrogant in front of Killing Blade." "What? You want to fight here?" Lin Yi's eyes fell on Frenzied Blade, Lai Tenyu. His eyes were extremely cold. The whole space seemed to be frozen, and the endless artistic conception was also frozen at this moment. The royal banquet itself was a battle between prodigies. Sooner or later, he would have to face Killing Blade. Everyone here was a monstrous genius with a monstrous personality. Daring to call him ignorant in front of so many people, he was simply courting death. As he spoke, he took a step forward. At the same time, the sword intent on his body soared into the sky, forming countless invisible sharp swords. The sword radiance and sword light wrapped around his body, making him look like a sword god standing proudly between heaven and earth. Arrogant, arrogant, yes, arrogant. Facing Lai Tenyu, Lin Yi dared to provoke him like this. This degree of arrogance was even greater than Lai Tenyu's. "My name is Lai Tenyu. I'm known as Frenzy Blade." Lai Tenyu's face was cold. Daring to be arrogant in front of Lai Tenyu was simply courting death. Moreover, Lin Yi took the initiative to provoke him. If he didn't teach Lin Yi a lesson, he would definitely be laughed at by countless experts. Without saying anything, he took a step forward. The unparalleled sword intent turned into a sword radiance and slashed at Lin Yi. Suddenly, the space was split in half. Frenzy Blade's sword intent was even more terrifying than the third prince's. His sword intent was pure and unparalleled. "So what if you're Frenzy Blade? I'll still cripple you." A faint smile appeared on Lin Ye's face. The unparalleled sword intent turned into a sword radiance and affected the sword radiance. The space was split in half. In an instant, the saber radiance and the sword radiance collided, and the space was constantly twisted and torn apart. The other palm and fist wills all retreated. Moreover, 3 monstrous cultivators were sent flying by the impact of the battle between Killing Blade and Lin Ye's will. Boom, boom, for a moment, the sword and sword intents raged in the erased space. The entire space was in chaos at this moment. The other experts mobilized their intents to protect themselves and curiously watched the battle from the side. In the square, all the experts stared intently at the erased space. They were extremely excited, but more were shocked because they didn't expect Lin Yi, a manifestation realm expert, to fight with frenzied blade in the second round. The Shengling Heavenly Sect Master, Huang Tianxiao, and Chu Yunyan, who were beside him, were all worried. At the same time, they were looking forward to it. All the peerless experts' gazes landed on Lin Yi. Unparalleled sword intent. Destructive sword intent. After the collision, there was no clear winner. The two didn't have any intention of stopping. Sword intent rolled out, and sword intent slashed out. Every time they released a sword intent or sword intent, they would take a step forward and walk toward each other. Unparalleled battle intent was displayed from their bodies. The intents raged all around, but it was ignored by the two. In their eyes, there was only the other party's unparalleled intents. Lin Ye's face was calm. With a faint smile on his face, he looked relaxed. His sword intent was getting more and more terrifying. It had already reached the peak of 100% and was only one step away from forming the sword domain. Frenzied blade Lai Tenyu. He was extremely shocked. Seriously, he really didn't expect Lin Yi to be so powerful. His unparalleled sword intent couldn't do anything to Lin Yi. Moreover, he discovered a terrifying thing, which was that Lin Yi wasn't using his full strength. However, he also had a backup plan. No matter how powerful Lin Yi was, he would lose to Frenzied Blade. Crack, crack, boom. The two of them didn't know how many intents they released. However, the two of them, who were originally about 500 meters apart, were now only 100 meters apart, and the distance was getting closer and closer. The sword intent and sword intent were getting more and more terrifying, and the space was trembling more and more. It was as if it would collapse at any time. During this period, there were a total of 11 people who were eliminated by the two of them. Lin Yi, your sword intent is very strong, but you are destined to be no match for me. Frenzied Blade Lai Tenyu showed a confident smile on his face. His sword intent had reached the peak, but he still couldn't defeat Lin Yi. However, the confident smile on his face was puzzling. Even the sword intent at the peak of 100% couldn't defeat Lin Yi. Now, was Lai Tenyu really sure that he could defeat Lin Yi? For a moment, countless experts looked at Lai Tenyu. They were curious to know how Lai Tenyu defeated Lin Yi. Well, I had to know. The rules of the second round could only be a battle of intents. A battle of intents. You will be unwilling to lose. I will give you a chance to fight. Lin Ye's smile was still on his face. At this moment, he already understood Frenzied Blade's means. It must be a domain, a sword domain. Only a sword domain could defeat a sword intent at the peak of 100%. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident. The sword domain, was it very strong? It was indeed very strong, and it could destroy all intents. However, Lin Yi was not afraid, although he hadn't reached the sword domain. However, his metal elemental territory had reached 99. The metal elemental territory had a terrifying boost to Blade Dao and Sword Dao. It was known for its destructive power and sharpness. He believed that Hunting Tianyu had not reached 99 territories. Chapter 226. So arrogant. Countless experts were shocked when they heard Lin Ye's words. However, the way they looked at Lin Yi was completely different from before. Previously, when they looked at Lin Yi, they thought Lin Yi was a clown. Now, when they looked at Lin Yi, they saw that Lin Yi was a monstrous expert who could defeat Jian Wushuang in seconds. His talent was not inferior to any of the monstrous experts present. At the same time, they said that Lin Yi was arrogant. They were all curious about what methods Frenzied Sword would use to defeat Lin Yi. Of course, they were also curious about where Lin Ye's absolute confidence came from. It wasn't difficult to understand the meaning of Lin Ye's words. It meant that it would be easy to defeat Frenzied Sword, and he even had absolute confidence in kicking Frenzied Sword out. But he didn't want to kick Frenzied Sword out so soon. He wanted to give Frenzied Sword a chance to fight. How confident was that? Saber Domain. Frenzied Sword Lai Tenyu looked arrogant. The unparalleled saber intent changed in an instant, and the saber intent turned into a solid saber domain. In front of him, 5 rays of saber light appeared. That was the domain. Saber Domain. Saber Domain, 5 rays. The rays of the saber domain appeared and directly cut the surrounding intents into pieces, erasing all intents. It was invincible. The strong suppression caused the endless intents to collapse. That was the difference between intents and domains. That was a qualitative difference. Even one domain was enough to suppress an intent at the peak. Domain, saber, domain, celestial realm, 5 chi rising sun. To comprehend a domain, it is indeed monstrous. 5 domains, terrifying. Generally, celestial realm can only comprehend and cultivate a domain when they are at the peak, but the domain is not strong. Only saints can master a powerful domain. I didn't expect Frenzied Sword to have 5 domains. 5 saber domains. Lin Yi is like an ant in front of him. Yu Qianjiao and the others must have also mastered a domain, but I don't know how strong they are. 5 domains. Lin Yi is not his opponent, what a pity. On the square of Royal City. On the seats around the formation space. At this moment, there was an uproar of discussion. They were all shocked by the fact that Lai Tenyu possessed 5 saber domains. Even Yu Qianjiao and the others, who were in the array space, looked solemn. When the sect master saw Lin Yi's strength, he thought that Lin Yi might be able to defeat Frenzied Blade. However, he didn't expect that Lai Tenyu would have 5 blade domains. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't be a match for him. Even after cultivating in the Saint's Tomb for a period of time, he did not believe that Lin Yi could comprehend and cultivate a domain. Voila, the saber domain cut through space. The unparalleled intent realm collapsed. In an instant, 5 saber domains appeared in front of Lin Yi. At this moment, everyone knew what happened to Lin Yi. As expected, Lin Yi was defeated by Killing Blade and was kicked out of the second round. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Under the gazes of countless experts, Lin Yi moved. Hearing Lin Yi's words, they were speechless and curious. In the next second, all of the experts were stunned. Their mouths were wide open, and their eyeballs were about to fly out. It was as if they had seen a ghost. They saw Lin Yi swiped with one hand. A golden light appeared. The golden light was composed of 18 golden rays. 18 golden rays formed a light the size of a bowl. The golden light was constantly changing in Lin Yi's palm. Immediately after, the golden light went towards the saber domain. Kacha, the golden light collided with the saber domain. Kacha's sounds were endless. The saber light was directly suppressed and shattered into pieces. The whole process happened in the blink of an eye. Gold domain. 18 gold domains. Oh my God. Creation realm. 18 gold domains. It's really the gold domain. He has mastered the domain to the point of perfection. I really didn't expect that 18 gold domains would directly suppress 5 saber domains. I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it. The Shengling Heavenly Sect actually has such a heaven-defying genius. Inside the array space, the saber domain disappeared. Frenzied Sword's face was full of disappointment, and his eyes were full of disbelief. He was Frenzied Sword, a monstrous expert with 5 saber domains. He was the most promising genius to become a saint. When had he ever taken a creation realm seriously? He didn't expect that when he was at his peak, in front of his strongest advantage, he actually lost to a young man in the creation realm. He had once regarded this young man as a clown. Creation realm, 18 gold domains. 18 gold domains, impossible, impossible. Frenzied Sword muttered to himself. He didn't want to believe that it was true, even if he was beaten to death. Who dares to touch the light of battle power? Ow! The gold domain in Lin Yi's palm kept jumping. He looked at the 9 light of battle power floating in the air and said indifferently. His tone was calm, but it was a huge threat. A threat. Not bad. It was a threat. It was a blatant threat. One person actually threatened everyone. If they didn't see it with their own eyes and hear it with their own ears, they wouldn't believe it was true. However, this unbelievable thing happened. What made them even more speechless was that Lin Yi's threat made them angry, but they didn't dare to say anything, because they all knew. In the second round of the Battle of Wills, they could only use their wills. However, Lin Yi had already surpassed the will and controlled the domain, and he had 18 gold domains. 18 gold domains. Even if they all controlled 1 or 2 domains, they were even stronger than Frenzied Sword. However, when faced with Lin Ye's 18 gold domains, they were just looking for trouble. Swoosh, swoosh. Swoosh, swoosh. Lin Yi grabbed in the air. He grabbed the 9 light of battle power back one by one. Then, he grabbed the light of battle power and slapped it on his body. Suddenly, Lin Ye's face became distorted. The light of battle power merged with Lin Yi. In an instant, Lin Ye's battle power had more than doubled. Originally, his battle power increased by 10%, but now it increased by 1 billion, doubling his battle power in all aspects. Boom! Lin Yi felt the terrifying battle power in his body. A smile appeared on his face. With the unparalleled domain, he slammed his fist on the ground of the formation space. Suddenly, there was a burst of terrifying power on the battle stage. Puff! Puff! One by one, the monstrous experts were thrown out. When it was quiet, there were only 16 people left in the formation space. This scene fiercely shocked the minds of all the experts present. He was almost arrogant. Too arrogant. Too strong. He was completely acting alone. Royal Feast. The second round is over. Dishiyu, with a smile on his face, loudly announced the end of the second round of the Royal Feast. He was very satisfied with this round of competition. It was beyond his expectations. Boom! Boom! When Dishiyu announced the end of the second round, the monstrous experts in the formation space were all sent out. Chapter 227. In the second round, Lin Yi gets 1 point. The others don't get any points. The first one to leave the matrix space is out. Dishiyu's voice spread throughout the square. There were more than 1 million strong cultivators in the square. After Lin Ye's result was announced, countless people recovered from a shock. Their expressions kept changing. One person had snatched all 10 battle prowess lights. The others couldn't get any points in the second round. Now, Lin Ye's battle prowess had reached 2. 1 times. Even if he was only in the creation realm, he was much closer to the other monstrous cultivators. Moreover, Lin Yi himself was terrifyingly strong. Everyone could imagine that Lin Yi, who had 1 times his battle prowess, was unimaginably powerful. 2 monstrous. That's unexpected. No one thought it would be like this. Lin Yi, good job. It's really unexpected that a creation realm cultivator could be so powerful. 18 gold domains. He's considered a top figure in the celestial being realm, not to mention that he's only in the creation realm. A creation realm cultivator can master domains. Generally speaking, a creation realm cultivator who can cultivate to the 5th or 6th level is considered amazing. A celestial being who can cultivate to the peak is considered a genius. He has surpassed the level of a genius. Waves of discussions rang out incessantly. For a time, Lin Yi became the focus of all the strong cultivators. Naturally, he was regarded as the biggest dark horse in the top 3. The happiest person was the sect leader, Dong Shuejin. Originally, he brought Lin Yi and the other 2 to the royal banquet to let them broaden their horizons. He didn't expect them to go further. However, he didn't expect Lin Yi to be so monstrous. A creation realm cultivator with 18 gold domains. How heaven-defying was that? It was unimaginable. Even if they couldn't get a spot this time, the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect would have a heaven-defying genius. If they cultivated him, the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect would have another peerless cultivator. Royal Banquet. The third round began. After a while, Dishiyu loudly announced the start of the third round of the Royal Banquet. Suddenly, the entire square quieted down. Everyone listened carefully to the rules of the third round. Although they weren't competing, they were looking forward to the third round. This was especially true for the 30 monstrous experts outside the formation space. In the third round, 10 people will be eliminated. 1 point, no stacking. In the third round, both time and space are changing. This round, the Battle of Formation Runes. Dishiyu's face revealed a trace of anticipation. A true expert was not only proficient in martial arts, but also proficient in all kinds of methods. It could be said that a true powerhouse was omnipotent. Moreover, there was another crucial point. After entering the Grand Xiao World ruins, there were many mechanisms and countless array runes. If one was proficient in array runes, their chances and hopes would be greater. This was also one of the key tests for the Heavenly Purification Territory's two great empires to select monstrous experts. Battle of Formation Runes. Battle of Formation Runes? On the square of King City, all the experts couldn't help but be surprised after hearing Dishiyu's words. At the same time, the expressions of the 30 monstrous experts outside the formation kept changing. Someone was proficient in formation patterns. Some were completely clueless. Some of them only knew half of it. Wanting to gain an advantage in this round was another matter altogether. Of course, those who were proficient in formation patterns were naturally overjoyed. Whoosh, when Dishiyu finished speaking, rays of light swept across the 30 monstrous experts. When the 30 monstrous experts appeared again, they were already inside the formation space. All the monstrous experts who competed to stay. After entering the formation space, their first reaction was surprise. Gravity had disappeared. Everything was no different from the outside world. But soon, they all discovered a problem. There was only one person in the entire formation space, and not even a shadow of the others could be seen. Floating above them were 10 balls of combat power light. Seeing that the combat power light had not decreased, they knew that no one had obtained this round's combat power light. Hiss, hiss, in the next second, mysterious and profound formation runes appeared in the space around everyone. The formation runes kept spinning. Moreover, the formation space that was originally 2 miles in size was constantly shrinking at this time. It was rapidly being compressed by the formation runes. Until now, everyone finally understood what Dishiyu said. The space would change, and it was indeed changing. It was rapidly shrinking. If this continued, if they couldn't crack the formation runes within a certain period of time, they would be crushed and destroyed by the formation runes. At that time, they would naturally be eliminated. The experts outside the formation space. Everything they saw was different from what the competitors in the formation space saw. Looking inside from the outside, the 30 monstrous experts stood in the formation space in a daze. The 30 monstrous experts were surrounded by the mysterious formation runes, which were constantly rotating and shrinking. The formation runes are getting faster and faster. If this continues, it will only take 15 minutes to shrink to the extreme. I really don't know who will be eliminated in this round. It's not easy to crack the formation runes and snatch the combat power light. Lin Yi, he won't be so lucky this time. Yu Qianjiao is definitely the first to break the formation runes. He is proficient in formation runes. Countless voices of discussion intertwined into one. This caused the entire square to be in an uproar. On the seats around the formation space, the peerless experts looked inside nervously. The most relaxed one was the sect master of the Saint Soul Heavenly Sect, because Lin Yi had already obtained 2 points. 1 point more than everyone else. Even if he didn't score in this round, he wouldn't fall behind. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if Lin Yi didn't get one of the 3 places, the Saint Soul Heavenly Sect would still gain a lot this time. Of course, he valued Lin Yi's strength very much. He didn't believe that Lin Yi would be eliminated in this round. Biluo, I'll leave it to you. Lin Yi stood in the formation runes with a calm and relaxed expression. In his sea of consciousness, he communicated with Biluo. This kind of thing could only be solved by Biluo. This is just a simple formation rune. There are a total of 33,333 runes. The 7th rune, break it with force. Biluo's voice sounded. She then observed the formation runes around Lin Yi and quickly pointed out the key to this formation rune. At the same time, she told Lin Yi the way to break it. Only 1 force was enough to break it. However, in the 33,333 formation runes, there is only 1 place that could be broken by force, and that place was the 7th formation rune. If he made the wrong choice, he would suffer a great loss. Understood. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth revealed a confident smile. Although he didn't cultivate the formation runes, he was a divine spiritual sorcerer. a terrifying one. He wasn't far from becoming a divine, spiritual sorcerer. With such a powerful divine, spiritual sorcerer, his thinking, agility, analysis, and comprehension were extraordinary. In addition, there was Biluo in his sea of consciousness. Even if he didn't cultivate the formation runes, he still understood a little. Moreover, every time he cracked the formation runes, Biluo just said it. He was the one who actually did it. Therefore, he found the 7th formation rune at a glance. He raised his hand, and a force condensed. Then, he threw a punch at the 7th formation rune. His action. All the experts in the square were puzzled. Then, they despised and disdained Linyi. Linyi actually used force to break the formation runes. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Chapter 228. Crack. Just when all the experts were looking down on Linyi, Linya's punch had already landed on the array pattern. Suddenly, the array pattern shook violently, and 33,333 array patterns burst out with a mysterious light. Then all the array patterns shattered and turned into nothingness. Linyi appeared in the center of the array space. As far as his eyes could see, the other 29 monstrous experts were surrounded by the array pattern, and they had yet to think of a way to break the array pattern. At this moment, his point of view was the same as the experts outside who were watching the show. At this moment, the experts in the Monarch City Square. Everyone's eyeballs were about to pop out. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never believe that Linyi could break the array pattern with brute force. But this was the reality. Linyi had really broken the array pattern with brute force. Whoosh! Looking at the combat power light in the sky, Linyi reached out and grabbed in the air. Suddenly, a ball of combat power light descended towards him. When the combat power light entered his hand, he did not hesitate at all and slapped it onto his body. The combat power light increased one's combat power by 10%. At this moment, Linya's combat power had increased by 2 times. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately after, Linyi grabbed the combat power light in the sky and merged with it. In just a moment, 5 combat power lights were merged by him. Initially, he wanted to merge all the combat power lights, but Yu Tianjiao and Lai Tinyu broke the array pattern one after another and snatched the combat power light. They saw the combat power light imprint on Lin Ye's body. The expressions on the monstrous experts' faces kept changing. 6 times of combat power. It made everyone envious. Crack! Crack! Voices rang out one after another as monstrous geniuses appeared in the array space one after another. As time went by, 20 monstrous experts appeared in the array space. Boom! There was a destructive explosion. 10 rays of destructive light appeared in the array space. When the 10 rays of destructive light appeared, the monstrous experts were blasted out of the array space. They were the ones who were eliminated in this round. The third round has ended. Lin Yi has 3 points. The first prince has 2 points. Yu Qinjiao has 2 points. Young Master Demon Blood has 2 points. Young Master Nanyang has 2 points. Lai Tinyu has 2 points. Moro Yuelin has 1 point. Wang Tianziu has 1 point. The third prince has 1 point. And the 7th prince has 1 point. Now, the fourth round. The fourth round, one-on-one elimination. The winner gets 1 point. The loser gets eliminated. Dishiyu's voice sounded again. Then, he explained the rules of the fourth round. The rules were simple. 20 people's elimination. The loser would be eliminated, and the winner would get 1 point to enter the next round. Although luck played a large role in the lot drawing, it was a competition of both strength and luck. In this world, although luck was very fleeting, it was also very magical. A true expert needed great wisdom, great perseverance, great opportunities, great luck, great talent, and great resources. These were the 6 keys to becoming an expert, and not a single one could be missing. It was obvious how important luck was. There were no real battles in the first 3 rounds. I didn't expect the Creation Realm Cultivator from the Shengling Heavenly Sect to get 3 points. I wonder if he will be eliminated in the 4th round. After all, his realm and strength are too far from the first prince's. There is still a glimmer of hope with 2. 6 times of battle power. It's too difficult. It's basically impossible. That depends on his luck. If he draws a monstrous expert who doesn't get any points, he still has a chance to enter the top 10. If he draws the first prince's group, there is basically no hope. In the square of Monarch City, after Dishi Yu announced the rules, the square was in an uproar. Of course, no one had any objections to Dishi Yu's rules. Moreover, even if they had objections, it would be useless. It's already very good to be able to pass the third round. It's getting harder and harder. The sect master's face was filled with excitement and expectation, but there was also a trace of worry. After taking a deep breath, his mood became relaxed. After all, he came to the royal banquet to bring Lin Yi and the other two to broaden their horizons. He didn't come for the 3 spots at all. Lin Yi had already done a great job by coming this far. It depends on junior brother Lin's luck. If junior brother Lin draws someone else, he can still enter the top 10. Chu Yinyin said. She was also shocked by this junior brother. As the eldest senior sister of the Shengling heavenly sect, her talent was needless to say. However, she didn't expect such a monstrous genius to appear in the Shengling heavenly sect this year. It was completely beyond her expectations. No one is a match for young master. Silent Soul's beautiful face had a beautiful smile. Her lively and charming eyes looked at Lin Yi outside the space of the formation as she spoke unhurriedly. She knew a little about Theta Scarabee's strength, about Lin Yi's strength. Even if he wasn't a match for her now, he was confident to deal with some celestial realm experts with 5 Qianyang. Moreover, Lin Yi was a powerful divine, spiritual sorcerer. He was simply invincible. Even if she was at the peak of the celestial realm, she didn't have the slightest confidence to face Lin Yi. The draw begins. In the boiling discussion, Dishi Yu's voice was like rolling thunder. Suddenly, the discussion in the square stopped, and it was quiet. After Dishi Yu's voice, Lin Yi and the others stepped forward one by one to draw lots. Number 20. The 20 people drew lots very quickly. Soon, it was Lin Yi's turn. Lin Yi picked up the jade lot and looked at it, only to see the number 20 engraved on it. Odd numbers on the left, even numbers on the right. Number 1 against number 2, number 3 against number 4, number 5 against number 6, and so on. The draw was completed. Dishi Yu separated the 20 people. Odd numbers and even numbers stood on one side. At the same time, he announced the rules of the competition. Everyone only knew the number on the jade lot in their hands, but didn't know who their opponents were. Only when they really entered the formation space to fight would they know who their opponents were. Lin Yi stood on the right side of the formation space. There was a faint smile on his face. He looked inside the formation space, observing the means and strength of these monstrous experts. While watching, he quickly adjusted his state. He strived to fight his opponents in his best state. Rumble, rumble. In the first battle, number 1 and number 2 didn't score any points, but their strength was extremely terrifying. Even the eldest prince and the others were surprised, and Lin Yi was even more so. Now, he really saw the strength of the top monstrous experts of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. These monstrous experts were no weaker than Lin Yi, and they were even much stronger. The terrifying battle caused the array formation in the array formation space to tremble. Although separated by the formation, the power in the formation space still made the experts who were watching feel great pressure. They couldn't help but step back and put some distance between themselves and the formation space. Chapter 229. Number 1 wins, 1 point. Number 4 wins, 1 point. Number 5 wins, 1 point. Time passed by minute. On the battle stage in the array space, the battles were extremely fierce. Every battle was a showdown between the top experts of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, because the people fighting were all the top geniuses of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. They were all in the celestial realm, and some were even at the peak. Of course, no one dared to say that the geniuses in this royal feast were only at the peak of the celestial realm. Maybe there were even geniuses suppressing their realm. At the most critical moment, they would play their trump card. 2 hours passed. Out of the 20 people, 18 had already fought. When the 9th battle began, The expressions on the faces of the experts in the royal city square became a little strange. Because, among the remaining two people, one was Lin Yi, the other was the eldest prince. The eldest prince was number 19, and Lin Yi was number 20. They did not expect that the opponent of the top genius, the eldest prince, would be Lin Yi. Some were also curious about how long Lin Yi could last in front of the eldest prince. Between the two, Lin Yi was only at the peak of the 8th level of the creation realm, while the eldest prince was a genius at the peak of the celestial realm. The gap between them was too big, regardless of the cultivation realm, or the background, or the age and strength. There was a big gap. For a moment, they felt pity for Lin Yi. If Lin Yi was lucky and drew other geniuses who did not score, Lin Yi would have a great chance to enter the top 10. Now, he was too unlucky to encounter the eldest prince. Boom! With a destructive explosion, the 9th battle ended. Murong Yuelin won easily and won 1 point, smoothly entering the next round of competition. At the moment when the 9th battle ended, all the experts looked at the eldest prince and Lin Yi. Haha, Lin Yi's luck is too bad. Meeting the eldest prince, there's only despair. I guess the eldest prince will kill him in 3 moves. He has reached the end. However, be able to make it to the 3rd round is already quite impressive. Losing to the first prince is not an injustice. He can only blame his bad luck. It doesn't matter if he loses sooner or later. Even if he passes this round, he will still be defeated in the next round. Lin Yi and the first prince had yet to go on stage. The space in the square was drowned out by the sounds of discussion. Yes, he was drowned. In an entire square, hundreds of thousands of experts were discussing among themselves like a tidal wave. At this moment, 99% of the people thought that Lin Yi's luck was bad and that he would be easily defeated by the first prince. The majority even thought that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to last more than 3 moves. That's normal, because the gap between Lin Yi and the first prince was too big. This time, the first prince definitely occupied a spot. With his strength, only Yu Tianjiao and Lai Tenyu could match him. As for Lin Yi, he was the one with the lowest cultivation. Whoosh, whoosh, amidst the endless discussions, Lin Yi was swept away by a ray of light and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already on the battle stage in the erase space. His entire person was calm and composed from the beginning to the end. His face was calm and relaxed, without the slightest bit of panic or pressure. You are quite strong, but you lack luck. The first prince was wearing a python robe and had a slender body. He had a confident smile on his face, and his body exuded an innate aura of a king. He was the first prince of the Cloud Sky Kingdom and a peerless expert. He was destined to be extraordinary. In the future, he could become a king if he wanted to. If he didn't want to be a king, he would become a peerless expert. For a long time, he had the aura of a king and a superior attitude. As he spoke, he looked at Lin Yi indifferently. "Your Highness, Your Highness." As soon as the first prince finished speaking, there was a burst of cheers in the square of the royal city. His popularity was not much lower than His Majesty Mingwang. Countless proud daughters of the heavens were smitten with him. In their eyes, the first prince's every move was so elegant, and so noble. The first prince was a god in their hearts. On the contrary, at this moment, Lin Yi was standing opposite the first prince. In the eyes of countless talented girls, he was a clown. If the first prince was a jade, then Lin Yi was a stone in a cesspool. "Your Highness is wrong. I have always been lucky. Otherwise, this round wouldn't have been too boring." Lin Yi put his hands behind his back. There was a faint smile on his face, and his entire person seemed to be at ease. His words were neither fast nor slow. His calmness made people feel his incomparable confidence. Very confident, but a little blind. The first prince looked at Lin Yi and couldn't help but feel surprised. He didn't know where this young man's confidence came from. Could it be that the advantage in the first 3 rounds gave him this confidence? If that was the case, it really wasn't enough. However, his expression didn't change at all. "You won't say that later. Actually, I'm really curious if you'll still be so arrogant later." Lin Yi smiled. He didn't move at all, but a destructive aura erupted from his body, and his aura instantly surpassed the scope of the creation realm and reach the power of the celestial being realm. In just 3 breaths, Lin Ye's aura and pressure reached the peak of the celestial being 5 Qiyang realm. The starry sky divine art was activated. He slowly stretched out his right hand behind his back. Then, he raised his hand and punched. He punched out across the air, and suddenly the space was shattered. The destructive fist light crushed toward the first prince with the power of a king. Wherever the fist light passed, the space shattered inch by inch. His attack was clean and neat. He had the demeanor of a great master. This punch was the peak of the 3rd level of the Heavenly Emperor Fist. Moreover, this attack was fused with the 1st level of Invincible Attack, which doubled his attack power. More importantly, he now had 6 times his combat power. Just this point alone was enough to close the gap between the Blessed Realm and the Celestial Realm. In the square of Monarch City, all the experts, including the monstrous experts who were competing, as well as the peerless experts in the seats around the array space, they couldn't help but be surprised when they saw Lin Ye's destructive punch. They didn't expect Lin Ye, a young man in the creation realm, to have such a terrifying punch. In their previous opinion, Lin Ye relied on luck and talent in the first 3 rounds, and his strength wasn't very strong. Meeting the first prince was the best way out, because losing to the first prince wasn't shameful. But now, the power of his punch was enough to make people's hearts tremble. Good, the first prince shouted good. There was excitement on his face, and his fighting spirit soared at this moment. Although he was arrogant, but he was a true monstrous expert, and it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a martial arts fanatic. Seeing Lin Ye's strength, he was extremely excited because in this way, he could have a great battle. A true monstrous genius was not afraid of a strong opponent, but worried about not meeting a strong opponent. The stronger the opponent, the greater the pressure, and with pressure, there was motivation. Boom, he punched out, and the same punch smashed toward Lin Ye's Heavenly Emperor Fist. Chapter 230. The Peerless Fist Radiance crushed the space. The fist intent, the peak of the fist intent. Lin Ye was like that. So was His Royal Highness. The power of the fist shocked all the experts present. They did not dare to imagine what they would do if they encountered this fist. There was no way they could resist it at all because the fist radiance of Lin Ye and His Royal Highness were invincible. Boom! The fist radiance collided with the hundreds of thousands of experts in shock. Suddenly, the entire space was shattered. The array space was constantly trembling, twisting and twisting as if it was about to collapse at any time. Although the peerless fist power did not spread out, the peerless aura made countless experts feel suffocated, as if the destructive fist radiance had bombarded them. Thump! 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 Lin Ye's figure swayed and quickly retreated. His chest felt as if it had been hit hard. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. The peak of the 3rd level of the Celestial Emperor Fist, coupled with the 1st level of the Invincible Attack, which doubled the attack in 2. 6 times the combat strength. Even an ordinary Celestial Realm expert would have died long ago. But against His Royal Highness, not only did he not gain the upper hand, instead, he was injured by His Royal Highness' full strength. A peerless genius expert of the Celestial Realm, who was at the peak of the Rising Sun Realm, was indeed extraordinary. Of course, His Royal Highness was one of the top 10 geniuses of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. In the Cloud Sky Kingdom, he was almost invincible in this generation, and there were only a few geniuses who could fight with him. On the other hand, His Royal Highness on the other side, his body only shook slightly, and then he was as steady as a rock. But His Royal Highness was shocked. He was naturally very clear about his own strength. His fist was actually blocked by Lin Ye. This Lin Ye was indeed not simple. Suddenly, he began to take it seriously in order to avoid capsizing in the gutter. Your strength is not bad, His Royal Highness said with a smile. But he did not stop. He clapped his hands in the void, and suddenly the space shattered. In an instant, an endless amount of power came crashing down on Lin Ye. In a battle between experts, victory and defeat was decided in a single thought. Since the battle had already begun, he naturally wouldn't lose the initiative. More importantly, The first prince wanted to rely on his own advantage and cultivation to defeat Lin Yi, so he had to reveal as little of his strength as possible. This was because his opponents were Lai Tenyu and the others. He wouldn't let his opponents know about his methods just because of Lin Yi. The first prince's praise. It's quite comfortable, but His Highness the First Prince still can't avoid the fate of being eliminated. Lin Yi steadied himself. He casually pointed out with his finger. Heaven-destroying finger, second level. The might of a single finger pierced through space. At this moment, the sky and earth changed color as the winds and clouds rumbled. It was as though the end of the world had arrived. The entire royal city square turned dark as countless experts were shocked. None of them had expected the power of a single finger to be so terrifying that it could change the color of heaven and earth. Saint level, Saint tier, martial skill. At this moment, there were countless powerful beings. They had already guessed that Lin Yi's finger must be a saint-level martial skill. Only a saint-level martial skill could have such terrifying power. Only a saint-level martial skill could change the color of heaven and earth. Even the first prince and a few other top geniuses were shocked. A saint-level martial skill wasn't a joke. Even though countless experts and geniuses were at the top of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, almost none of them had come into contact with saint-level martial skills or martial skills. Saint-level martial skills were legendary. Regardless of whether they existed in the Divine Mainland, at least no saint-level martial skills had appeared in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Even if there were, they were in the hands of hidden experts. Normally, it was impossible to have a saint-level martial skill. Yes, they were right. This was a saint-level martial skill. Not only was the heaven-destroying finger a saint-level martial skill, but the heavenly cold aurora and heavenly emperor fist were also saint-level martial skills. However, their power wasn't as terrifying as the heaven-destroying finger, and the commotion it caused wasn't as strong. Bang! The unparalleled finger force pierced through space. In an instant, it landed on the first prince's attack. Compared to the first prince's unparalleled attack, the finger force was like a drop of water compared to the sea. However, when the finger force landed on the first prince's attack, a sudden change occurred. The first prince's attack was quickly annihilated. The finger force penetrated the first prince's attack and crushed toward him. The small finger force had the power to destroy the sky. The space trembled, and everything fell silent. The first prince's expression changed. He really didn't expect it. He didn't expect the finger force to be so terrifying. It was completely beyond the scope of his imagination. At the same time, he was extremely envious. A saint-level martial skill. If he had such a saint-level martial skill, he would be able to sweep across the celestial realm. Just as the finger force of the heaven-destroying finger was about to penetrate his chest, a magical light burst out from the first prince's chest. The light wasn't strong, but it made people's hearts palpitate. Chi! The light collided with the finger force. There was a slight sound in the air. The finger force dissipated. The light disappeared. The first prince's expression changed. His body involuntarily retreated. He retreated 100 meters before he could stabilize his body. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. His face was a little pale. This outcome was both shocking and unbelievable, because they didn't expect that Lin Yi would actually injure the first prince. They also didn't expect that Lin Yi had mastered a saint-level martial skill. It was this saint-level martial skill that made Lin Yi turn the tables. It's over. Countless experts were shocked. Lin Yi's voice sounded. When all the experts looked at Lin Yi had already disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already standing in front of the first prince. The two were less than a meter apart. Lin Yi raised one hand. The light of the gold domain shrouded the first prince's head. 33 rays of light. 33 rays of golden light represented 33 gold domains. Under the domain, everything turned into nothingness. The gold domain itself represented destruction and sharpness. It was simply indestructible. The domain was even more terrifying. There was nothing that could resist the attack of the gold domain. 33. 33. What? 33 gold domains. Oh my God, 33. At this moment, all the experts' attention was not on whether the first prince was defeated. Instead, they were shocked by the gold domain that Lin Yi had mobilized. 33 gold domains. He was only in the creation realm, but he could control 33 gold domains. This was monstrous. One had to know that countless creation realm experts were still stuck at 50 to 60% of the intent realm. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had already reached domain level 33. One had to know that countless peak celestial realm experts had not mastered 33 domains. They naturally didn't know that Lin Yi had more than 33 domains. His gold domain had reached 99. Chapter 2:31. Spurt. 33 metal domains enveloped the first prince. The first prince couldn't resist and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was directly destroyed by the metal domain. Until he was defeated, he still couldn't accept the reality. He couldn't believe that he would lose, and lose to a creation realm cultivator. He definitely had a spot in this royal banquet. No one could defeat him. Even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance of him being defeated, the only people who could defeat him were Lai Tenyu, young Master Demon Blood, and the others. But he never thought that he would lose to Lin Yi in the elimination battle. So far, the first prince didn't even make it into the top 10. Defeated. The first prince lost. He had been utterly defeated. Only Lin Yi was left in the erase space. The first prince had already disappeared, kicked out of the erase space. There were more than 1 million experts in the royal city square. At this moment, the entire square was dead silent. Not a single sound could be heard. All eyes were on Lin Yi, as if they were looking at a monster. Even the peerless experts in the seats around the erase space couldn't help but be shocked. They knew better than anyone what a 33 Dao domain was, although it was nothing to them. But Lin Yi was just a creation realm cultivator. 17-year-old creation realm cultivator. With such a cultivation and age, he already had 33 Dao domains. How powerful would he be in the future? The first prince has been defeated. Am I seeing this right? This Lin Yi is indeed monstrous. I didn't expect such a monstrous genius to appear in the Shengling heavenly sect. No wonder a creation realm cultivator came to the royal banquet. There must be something wrong. The first prince lost to Lin Yi's domain. If Lin Yi didn't have 33 metal elemental domains, Lin Yi wouldn't be a match for the first prince. You're wrong. The real reason the first prince was defeated was that he was injured by a saint-level martial technique. Lin Yi's speed was extremely strange. He appeared in front of the first prince almost instantaneously, giving the first prince no chance to react. Otherwise, he couldn't have defeated the first prince with domain alone. If a domain doesn't reach a certain level, it can only be used as a support. It can't kill the opponent. Don't think you're invincible with a little domain. The royal city square was full of discussions. The peerless masters in the seats around the erase space were also discussing. Some half-saints saw the real reason why the first prince was defeated. Moreover, half-saints all had powerful domains, and the domains they controlled were naturally incomparable to those in the celestial realm. Naturally, they knew the use and power of domains. They knew that Lin Yi had defeated the first prince not because of domains. Of course, the first prince had indeed lost to Lin Yi's domain. In fact, in that situation, even if Lin Yi had used a normal attack, he would have been able to defeat the crown prince because the crown prince had not reacted in time. The fourth round has ended. Dishiyu's voice sounded. His voice made the whole royal city square quiet down. More people were looking forward to the next round of competition, because those who stayed were all the top geniuses of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. The battle would be wonderful. Now the top 10 is out. Next, it's free challenge. The first one to reach 10 points will be the first. When the first one is born, the competition of the royal feast will end. The rules of the free challenge are as follows. The winner of the challenge will get the opponent's points. If you fail, you will lose the chance to challenge. After announcing the top 10 geniuses, Dishiyu announced the rules of the next round. The next round was also the final round. Because this round was a free challenge, it wouldn't end until 10 points appeared. Of course, if the first one appeared, the competition of the royal feast would end. Lin Yi has 4 points now. He's currently ranked first. I guess he'll be in the top 5. Not necessarily. Whether it's talent or strength, he's terrifying. He's not weaker than the first prince. Even if he meets Lai Tenyu, he still has some hope. I guess he'll be in the top 3. He should be in the top 3. He's already used his 33 Dao domains. The others will be wary of him. It'll be difficult for him to be in the top 3. Junior brother Lin is in the top 10. There's hope for him to be in the top 3. This time, young master is also first. No one can surpass him. The discussion in the royal city square continued. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lin Yi and the other top 10 geniuses. At this moment, no one dared to look down on Lin Yi. He, regardless of his talent or his strength, was extremely terrifying. Of course, there was envy. Of course, there was jealousy. Who asked him to reach the creation realm at the age of 17 or 18? Who asked him to control 33 Dao domains when he was at the 8th level of the creation realm? Who asked him to defeat the first prince so easily? Time passed by minute. However, no one walked into the formation space. They didn't think about who to challenge because if they won the challenge, they might be challenged by others. No one wanted to be the cicada. If they failed the challenge, they would lose the right to challenge. No one wants to challenge me? If you defeat me, you can get 4 points. As countless experts waited anxiously, Lin Yi pressed one hand on the crystal screen. Suddenly, his figure flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already entered the formation space. He stood proudly in the formation space. With his hands behind his back, he looked at the other 9 geniuses. Then, he asked faintly. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth. He was calm and composed. Show off. Outside the formation space, Lai Tenyu snorted coldly. Then, his figure flashed, and he entered the formation space. In the second round, he was defeated by Lin Yi in the intent realm battle. It had always been a hurdle in his heart. Now that he saw Lin Yi's appearance, he was very upset. He wanted to defeat Lin Yi in front of all the experts in the world. In the formation space, Lin Yi and Lai Tenyu were 100 meters apart and looked at each other from afar. Using a saber, right? Lin Yi looked at Lai Tenyu. He activated the Starry Sky Divine Art, and a destructive power burst out. At the same time, his divine consciousness moved. The Skyflame's sacred saber appeared in his hand. The moment the Skyflame's sacred saber appeared, an unparalleled saber intent raged in the space. Without any hesitation, the Skyflame's sacred saber in his hand slashed out. In an instant, everything in the world changed. The entire square of Monarch City was filled with saber radiance and saber light. The formation space was filled with saber radiance and saber radiance. A saber slashed out. Everything lost its color. A saber slashed out. The world became a saber world. It was extremely destructive and invincible. My will is like a saber. One with the saber. Lai Tenyu, the saber Dao genius. He was born for the saber. Chapter 232. Saber will against saber will. Saber gleam against saber gleam. At this moment, the devastating saber gleam and saber gleam crushed the formation space. Lin Yi and Lai Tenyu were completely drowned in the saber gleam and saber gleam. No one knew what was going on. All the powerful beings found it hard to open their eyes because of the blinding saber gleam. Crack, crack. All they could hear was the earth-shattering explosion and the sound of the space tearing apart. Even though the formation was blocking it, that unparalleled power still gave the powerful beings outside a terrifying pressure. The explosions were endless. But in the blink of an eye, countless powerful beings caught sight of the situation within the formation space. All they saw was Lin Yi with a trace of blood at the side of his mouth. The saint weapon in his hand was the Skyflame Holy Saber. It was already shattered. The saber was no longer there. There were hundreds and thousands of tears on his robes. They were torn by the saber gleam, and every single tear had traces of blood. But there was something that puzzled everyone. There were no wounds on Lin Yi's body. Bam! Several hundred meters away from the forest, a bloody mark appeared on Lai Tianyu's forehead. He was horrified as he fell to the ground with a sway of his body. Before he could finish what he wanted to say, he was kicked out of the formation. This scene had all the powerful beings shocked and confused. Lai Tenyu clearly had the upper hand. But Lai Tenyu was defeated. Self-healing body. To think that there really is a self-healing body. In the square of the capital, all the powerful beings were shocked and confused. Just then, Dishiyu spoke up. This was the first time he had spoken other than announcing and hosting, and his tone was filled with shock and excitement. His words were naturally heard by the other powerful beings as well. Mysterious indeed. With a body as such, exchanging injuries for injuries can be considered a heaven-defying talent. The Ming King spoke up as well. The celestial beings present naturally did not see the battle within the formation space clearly. They did not know why Lai Tenyu was defeated, but the half-saints present saw it clearly. So, it was Lin Yi and Lai Tenyu's peak attack. Although Lin Yi's strength was terrifying, his combat power was 6 times, and he also had the invincible double attack. However, Lai Tenyu was also extremely powerful, especially his blade will. Compared to Lin Yi was much stronger. Using a saber, Lin Yi was really not Lai Tenyu's opponent. Therefore, he was seriously injured. However, Lai Tenyu did not know about Lin Yi's self-healing body. When the endless blade lights landed on Lin Yi's body, Lin Yi's self-healing body quickly recovered. Even if the Sky Flame Sacred Blade was destroyed, Lin Yi still managed to survive. On the other hand, it was Lai Tenyu who was struck between his eyebrows by Lin Yi's Sky Flame Sacred Blade fragment. Lin Yi victory. Score, 7 points. I'm temporarily ranked first. Dishiyu's voice came, announcing Lin Yi's victory. In this world, the method and process were not important. What was important was the outcome. Even though many of the experts present did not know how Lai Tianyu had been defeated, Lai Tianyu had indeed been defeated by Lin Yi and kicked out of the formation space. This was an undeniable fact. Good. After hearing Dishiyu's announcement, the sect master was extremely excited. He had never thought that Lin Yi would be able to reach this step. Although it was not the final result, Lin Yi's strength was there for all to see. The strongest crown prince and Lai Tenyu were both defeated by him. It would not be easy for the other monstrous experts to defeat Lin Yi. Therefore, Lin Yi had a high chance of entering the top 3. Not far away, Zhong Wushu of the Taiyu sect had an ugly expression, because no one from the Taiyu sect had entered the top 10. Earlier, he was still mocking the Saint Spirit Heavenly sect. Now that Lin Yi of the Saint Spirit Heavenly sect was so heaven-defying, his face was burning. Continue. Yu Qianjiao, let's fight. Lin Yi, who was in the formation space, did not leave. However, he did not leave. Instead, he shouted loudly, his entire being filled with heroism. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Although his clothes were torn, he did not look bad at all. Continuous battles, and he wants to challenge Yu Qianjiao. He's going to be number 1. He got 3 points from Lai Tenyu. Adding his own, he has 7 points. Yu Qianjiao has 3 points. If he defeats Yu Qianjiao, he will get 10 points. He will be the first to reach 10 points. Is he confident in defeating Yu Qianjiao? Actually, only Yu Qianjiao has a higher chance of fighting with him. Lin Yi's challenge to Yu Qianjiao caused an uproar in the square. The voices of discussion that blotted out the sky and covered the earth were like raging waves. In an instant, everyone looked at Lin Yi. All the discussions were directed at Lin Yi. That's what I was thinking. Yu Qianjiao was dressed in white. His long black hair reached his waist. He looked handsome. Even countless girls would be jealous of his appearance. His slender body took a step forward. When he appeared again, he was already in the formation space. Out of the world. Handsome. Clean. Powerful. This was the impression he gave to all the experts. Even Lin Yi had a good impression of him. However, this was a battle. There was only victory and defeat. The only thing he had to do was to defeat this handsome man in front of him. Unparalleled sword intent. Yes, unparalleled sword intent. In the formation space, the sword intent distorted the space. Although the two of them had not fought yet, the sword intent filled the entire space. In this sword intent, even the Sky Human Realm experts would not dare to say that they could withstand it. They might even be killed by the sword intent. All the experts in Monarch City Square had their eyes focused on this place at this very moment, because this battle would determine the number 1. This would be Lin Ye's third battle at the pinnacle. He had already defeated the first prince and Lai Tenyu. Now he was facing an expert who was similar to Lai Tenyu and the first prince, or even stronger. To get the number one, the two of them had a fight. Until this moment, the other geniuses understood that the real number one and number two were between the two of them. The others could only fight for the remaining spot. Who could defeat Lin Yi? Who could defeat Yu Tianjiao? Of course, no one had such confidence. Blood sword Yu Tianjiao. Take out your sword. Lin Yi slowly put down his hands behind his back. His divine thought moved. The sky moon sword appeared in his hand. The might of the 100 inscription saint weapon crushed the space. The space that had been ravaged by the sword will become even more unsightly, as if it would collapse at any moment. The unparalleled sword will quickly fused with the sky moon sword. The power and sword intent of the sky moon sword merged with Lin Ye's aura. He could use other means to deal with Yu Tianjiao. However, he chose to use the sword this time. Yu Tianjiao was a sword Dao expert. He had 1/3 of the divine sword body, which was comparable to an ordinary sacred body. He was also born for the sword Dao. Moreover, using the sword was his advantage. You use the sword, even if it is 100 inscriptions sacred weapon. The outcome will only be a defeat. Yu Tianjiao's tone was full of arrogance. Sword, he was truly born for the sword. In the entire Cloud Sky Kingdom, no one had a higher sword Dao cultivation than him. Among the sky humans in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, he also had a place. Now that he saw Lin Yi using the sword, he could not help but feel amused. As he spoke, he flipped his hand. The space instantly collapsed. Chapter 233. Oh, I hope that your swordsmanship doesn't disappoint your confidence. Lin Ye's expression was relaxed. He waved the sky moon sword in his hand, and a sword technique burst out. At the same time, 1/3 of the divine sword constitution was activated. At this moment, he was a true genius in swordsmanship. The sword was born for him because he had 1/3 of the divine sword constitution. Even if it was only 1/3, it was comparable to a sacred body, especially when using the sword. Even those powerful sacred bodies couldn't be compared to him. Yu Tianjiao felt the change in Lin Ye's body. He couldn't help but be surprised, and the expression on his face became serious. Although he didn't know what changes had happened to Lin Yi, based on his familiarity and understanding of swordsmanship, the changes in Lin Ye's eyes must be related to swordsmanship. At the same time, he also felt a strong threat. One sword chilling light 19 states. Lin Yi said calmly. Sky Sword 12 styles, the first style. At this moment, the sword light was peerless, illuminating 19 states. All the experts only felt that the sword light was so dazzling that they couldn't open their eyes. The cold sword light made them feel as if they were in an ice cellar. Those with weaker cultivation directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Crack! The cold sword light suddenly appeared. Everything between heaven and earth faded. All the experts couldn't open their eyes. He couldn't even release his divine sense. A cracking sound appeared in the space. After this sound, the world became silent. It was so silent that it was frightening. In just an instant, the cold sword light disappeared. Everything between heaven and earth returned to normal. All the experts present opened their eyes. When they saw the scene in front of them, everyone was stunned. Puffed, puffed. Yu Qianjiao's face was pale. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. In front of him, there were countless cracks on the huge blood-red sword, but it wasn't destroyed. At this moment, he was no longer as elegant as before. He looked like a beggar who had crawled out of a garbage dump. He looked indescribably embarrassed, and his eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Until this moment, he still couldn't believe that the young man in front of him was so terrifying. He wasn't shocked by Lin Ye's strength. It was Lin Ye's sword Dao cultivation. Lin Ye's sword Dao cultivation had truly surpassed his by a huge margin. If Yu Qianjiao wanted to catch up to Lin Yi in terms of sword Dao, there was still a long way to go. How could this be? He was the one who was born for the sword. How could he possibly lose to an expert who also used a sword? Naturally, you didn't know. He was born for the sword. As for Lin Yi, the sword was born for him. The essence and origin of the two was like heaven and earth. They were not on the same level at all. Naturally, his way of the sword could not be compared to Lin Ye's. Just now, in the face of the danger of destruction, he had been forced to use his strongest defense. He had even used his sword, which he viewed as his life, to block Lin Ye's attack. As a result, his Saint artifact had been heavily damaged. Is this your strongest move? A full quarter of an hour passed. Both of them stood motionless in the formation space. A long time later, Yu Tianjiao opened his mouth and looked at Lin Yi. This was what Yu Tianjiao wanted to know. At the same time, all the experts present wanted to know if the move just now was Lin Ye's limit. Because that move just now was too terrifying. It was completely beyond the imagination of the celestial realm experts present. Even half-sane experts were shocked. What do you think? Lin Ye's face was calm, and there was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He looked at Yu Tianjiao. He secretly guessed that Yu Tianjiao must have some terrifying means. His most terrifying sword move just now actually did not defeat Yu Tianjiao. This Yu Tianjiao was indeed incredible. If not for him, Yu Tianjiao would definitely be the first in this royal banquet. The other monstrous experts were still a long way from him. You are indeed strong, but as I said, you will still be defeated in the end. This is destined. Yu Tianjiao's face gradually returned to normal. Although he looked miserable, his demeanor was still elegant and confident because he had already guessed that Lin Yi had used his most powerful move. Now he was pretending to be relaxed, but in fact, it was an empty fort strategy. Moreover, he had not really attacked yet. Oh, I hope so, but you are destined to be disappointed. Lin Yi's expression was still the same. However, the Starry Sky Divine art had been activated, and the sword intent soared to the peak of 100%. An invincible attack, a truly invincible attack. At this moment, it was activated. Let me show you the true power of the blood sword. 9 blood sword, go. Yu Tianjiao waved his hand. A light curtain appeared, and the white light curtain instantly turned into the color of blood. 900 patterned saint weapons floated in the blood-red light, including the blood-red sword that Lin Yi had injured earlier. The 9 blood-red swords were all 100 patterned saint weapons. They formed a magical sword formation. The 900 inscription saint artifacts were a set, and the power was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. It was thousands of times stronger. Boom! The unparalleled blood sword burst out with shocking power. The palm-sized blood sword had now become several meters long. The destructive sword intent soared into the sky, and the sword light tore through the space. The power of the saint artifact made everything in the world pale in comparison. In the blink of an eye, 9 beams of sword light formed a destructive sword formation. The blood-red sword formation made people's hearts palpitate. At this moment, all the experts were stunned. Even the half-saints were shocked. If they were in Yu Tianjiao's place, they would not have the confidence to withstand the power of the sword formation. They did not expect that a celestial realm genius with 5 Qi suns would have the power of a half-saint or even surpassed it. It was simply unimaginable. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would not have believed it. At this moment, they all understood that the dust was about to settle. Because Lin Yi would not be able to withstand this move, let alone defeat Yu Tianjiao. Not to mention Lin Yi, who was in the creation realm. Even a half-saint at the peak of the celestial realm might not be able to defeat Yu Tianjiao. Therefore, Yu Tianjiao would definitely be the champion of this royal banquet. Very good. Very good. Then let's see how strong your 9 blood sword is. The expression on Lin Yi's face became serious. However, it only lasted for a moment. At this moment, there was no longer any hesitation. The power of the Starry Sky Divine art burst out, and the invincible power was displayed. With a thought, the Sky Moon Sword appeared again. The Sky Moon Sword floating in front of him spun quickly, swallowing the endless sword intent. However, Lin Yi did not grab the Sky Moon Sword. He made a hugging gesture with his hands, and then slowly separated them. Golden rays of light appeared between his hands. Gold Domain. It was the Gold Domain again. Seeing Lin Yi use the Gold Domain again, countless experts were disdainful. Although Lin Yi's Gold Domain had reached 33 beams, it was useless against the 9 blood sword formation. However, very soon, all the experts were shocked. Chapter 234. 33 Gold Domains, 33 Golden Rays. 34 Gold Domains, 35 Gold Domains, 36 Gold Domains. The metal domain in front of Lin Yi grew crazily. This scene caused all the experts to be dumbfounded. Their eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. They hadn't thought that Lin Yi's metal domain of 33 paths wasn't his limit. In just a few breaths, 99 gold domains were unfolded. Not bad. 99 gold domains. At this moment, the peerless experts in the seats around the formation space could no longer sit still. Even Dishiyu's face was full of shock and excitement, as if he had found a peerless treasure. 99 gold domains. This was something that only a half-saint expert could have. It could also be said that only a half-saint expert could have 99 domains. A celestial being could not have 99 domains because 98 domains was the limit. However, Lin Yi, an 8th-tier creation realm expert, had broken the limit of the celestial being realm. A creation realm expert had the same domains as a half-saint expert. This is unbelievable. This is a true genius. 99 domains. How is this possible? A creation realm expert has the domain of a half-saint. That is to say, he now has the qualifications to become a half-saint. As long as his cultivation reaches the required level, he will definitely become a half-saint. This is really enviable. More importantly, his gold domain does not belong to the Tao of Weapons. The peerless experts in the seats around the formation space began to discuss at this moment. Countless experts looked at Lin Yi with envy. A creation realm expert had the qualifications to become a saint. Yu Tianjiao's face became even uglier. At this moment, he gradually realized that the young man in front of him, who he had looked down on at the beginning, had left him far behind. His talent was not something that he could compare with. Gradually, his heart became twisted. He had to destroy such a monstrous genius. Murderous intent surged wildly. There was no concealment at all, and this murderous intent was not only directed at Lin Yi in the formation space. He had already decided that even after Lin Yi left the formation space, he would find a chance to eliminate Lin Yi. Crash rumble. As his killing intent surged, the nine-shade blood sword array covered the sky and crushed towards Lin Yi. Wherever the sword formation passed, everything turned into nothingness. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi was about to be drowned by the sword formation. At this moment, Lin Yi's 99 metal domains fused with the sky moon sword. The 99 metal domains fused with the sword intent. The long sword slashed out, and a sword light with the metal domain flew towards the sword formation. Rumble, rumble, sword formation, sword light. When they collided, the space around them shattered. Inside the formation space, the blood-red sword formation turned into a blood-red light, while Lin Yi's sword light turned into a golden light. The two lights filled the space, drowning the two of them. The array in the array space began to distort rapidly. An unparalleled and invisible pressure spread out in all directions. The experts who were watching the show in the Royal City Square were sent flying. Retreat. When the peerless experts in the seats saw the disturbance in the array space, their expressions changed. They no longer dared to hesitate and shouted loudly. At the same time, hundreds of half-saints flew out and surrounded the array space. Unparalleled saint power. Overbearing power. It exploded at this moment. Over 100 half-saints joined forces to form an invisible barrier, because they knew that if they did not attack, the Royal City Square would turn into a river of blood, and there would be countless casualties. Rumble, at the instant that the half-saints formed a barrier, the formation of the spatial formation shattered, and then it exploded. Destructive sword intent swept out from the spatial formation. The destructive power of the array space was also unleashed. Puff, puff, the destructive power was blocked by the hundreds of half-saints barrier. However, the invisible force injured the experts closest to it. Thousands of experts coughed out blood. Their faces were pale and powerless. However, they didn't dare to hesitate and quickly retreated. Among the hundreds of half-saints around the array space, more than a dozen of them also spat out blood. This scene shocked all the experts in the Royal City Square. Even with hundreds of half-saints joining forces, they were injured. Thousands of other experts were also injured. The battle between Lin Yi and Yu Qianjiao was too horrifying. Their battle had gone beyond the scope of creation realm and heavenly being. It was comparable to a battle between half-saints. Your Majesty, Bright King. The other peerless experts in the seats looked at Bright King. He opened his mouth and shouted. They meant to ask Bright King if the battle would continue. If it continued, it would definitely affect the experts who were watching outside. If it did not continue, they would have to choose another place to fight. It's okay. Bright King waved his hand, because he could see that the battle between Lin Yi and Yu Qianjiao had reached its climax. The outcome would be decided soon. The range of the battle would not be increased. With hundreds of half-saints guarding, there would be no problem. Moreover, he would not miss such an exciting battle. Of course, he did not care about Lin Yi and Yu Qianjiao's strength. He could crush them with one finger. But these two were the most powerful geniuses in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. They would win glory for the Cloud Sky Kingdom in the future. More importantly, he wanted to see who would win between Lin Yi and Yu Qianjiao. In fact, he already knew who was more powerful between the two. Rumble, rumble. The explosions continued, and unparalleled power spread out. Without the destructive power of the array, the hundreds of half-saints easily blocked the aftermath of the battle between Lin Yi and Yu Qianjiao. The experts watching the battle in the Royal City Square were no longer affected. Crash! 10 breaths. 10 breaths. The destructive power gradually calmed down. But the 9 blood swords were suspended in the air. The unparalleled power and sword intent were in the center. Lin Yi was in the center of the sword array. Countless cracks appeared on the sky moon sword, and it could no longer exert any power. Lin Yi's body was constantly being destroyed by the sword intent and sword array. The self-healing body was constantly recovering, but the speed of recovery was far slower than the speed of destruction. At this moment, everyone knew that the result was already decided. Lin Yi had already lost. He had lost to Yu Qianjiao. Junior brother Lin, young master, Chu Yinyin and Silent Soul were worried when they saw Lin Yi's situation. In this situation, Lin Yi would definitely lose. But Lin Yi did not admit defeat, nor was he kicked out of the array space. The sect leader was also worried. Although he wanted Lin Yi to win, the current situation meant that Lin Yi had already lost. Everyone knew that one would not be killed in the array space. However, the pain he suffered before he died was not fake at all. At this moment, Lin Yi was being attacked by the sword intent and the sword formation. That kind of pain was unbearable and unimaginable. Lin Yi, admit defeat. Yu Qianjiao looked at Lin Yi in the air, and a smile appeared on his face. But behind that smile was viciousness and killing intent. Chapter 235. Admit defeat. Yu Qianjiao, you're really ignorant. It's easy to kill you. Hearing Yu Qianjiao's words, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh in pain. Yu Qianjiao's strength was indeed terrifying. He was the most powerful expert he had seen besides a half-saint. Yu Qianjiao was even comparable to an ordinary half-saint expert. However, it was undoubtedly a joke for Lin Yi to admit defeat with just this little bit of strength. While they were talking, the 9 blood swords, sword formation, and unparalleled sword essence were constantly destroying his body. However, although he was enduring the excruciating pain, he had gained something. Because the 9 blood swords, sword formation, and sword essence were constantly being devoured by him. 1/3 of the divine sword constitution was refining the sword essence and the power of the sword formation. Stubborn. Let's see how long you can be stubborn. Yu Qianjiao's expression changed. He didn't expect Lin Yi to still refuse to admit defeat. It was better that he didn't admit defeat. The more he did so, the more torture and attacks Lin Yi would suffer. However, at this moment, he felt his sword essence fading away. He was instantly shocked. There were doubts and confusion in his shock. Soon, he realized that his sword essence was being devoured by Lin Yi. He had never heard of such a situation before, and it was the first time he had seen it happen. Suddenly, he was scared. However, it was impossible to solve the situation in front of him now. Hiss, the formation space had been destroyed, but there were hundreds of half-saints guarding it. The aftermath of the battle couldn't spread outside. The destructive sword essence and the overbearing sword formation were constantly destroying Lin Yi. However, at this moment, the endless sword essence and sword formation were crazily rushing towards Lin Yi. The 9 blood-red longswords were also rushing over. They weren't under Yu Tianjiao's control at all. Even Yu Tianjiao was wrapped up by the sword essence and flew into the air. This scene shocked all the experts in the square of Monarch City. They didn't understand what was going on. It was Yu Tianjiao who was torturing Lin Yi. How did it end up like this? Saintly body. It is definitely a saintly body. He has a holy body. That's the only way he can absorb Yu Tianjiao's sword matrix and sword intent. What? So perverted. This is too heaven-defying. Yu Tianjiao's sword intent and sword formation are being devoured and refined by him. So he's been coveting Yu Tianjiao's sword intent. Only at this moment did the strong cultivators understand the situation. This was a reversal, a shocking reversal. They had been on the verge of defeat, but they had managed to turn things around. Furthermore, Yu Tianjiao had fallen into their trap, devouring the opponent's sword formation and sword intent to strengthen oneself. This was a true monster. Whoosh whoosh crack in the air, the unparalleled sword intent was being devoured by Lin Yi. Around Lin Yi, strands of golden light crisscrossed. These strands of golden light were somewhat different from before. Before, they were just pure golden light. But now, the golden rays of light looked like sharp swords. Yes, it was a sharp sword. Sword domain. He has broken through. His sword intent has materialized into a sword domain. He has devoured Yu Tianjiao's sword intent and sword matrix to form his own sword domain. He's a true monster in the sword Dao. Yu Tianjiao has suffered a huge loss this time. Yu Tianjiao would never have thought that he would help his opponent. Sword domain. With one sword, the sword domain will follow. In 10 breaths of time, Yu Tianjiao was suspended in the air. His unparalleled sword intent and sword matrix had completely collapsed and were being devoured and refined by Lin Yi. In front of Lin Yi, a sword-shaped light appeared. This was the sword domain. Endless sword intent had fused and sublimated into a sword domain. From sword intent to sword domain, he had reached the heavens in one step. The sword domain was formed. Lin Yi waved one hand, and the thin sword domain directly cut through the air. Its speed ignored the distance between them and instantly landed in front of Yu Tianjiao. There was no suspense. Yu Tianjiao's eyes were filled with unwillingness and despair. The sword domain submerged Yu Tianjiao's body. Immediately after, Yu Tianjiao's body landed. Before he could land on the ground, his vitality was completely gone. His entire body was cut in half by the sword domain. 9 blood-red swords fell to the ground. Bang, a cloud of dust rose from the ground. At this moment, Yu Tianjiao had lost. He had lost miserably. What's going on? After Yu Tianjiao's body landed on the ground, all the experts were shocked by Lin Yi's strength and talent. They had neglected Yu Tianjiao. But soon, someone realized that something was wrong. Why was Yu Tianjiao not kicked out of the erase space? This situation was obviously not right, because as long as an expert failed, he would be kicked out of the erase space. Yu Tianjiao is dead? He's really dead. Oh my God, the erase space was destroyed by them. The power of the array has lost its effect. Yu Tianjiao is really dead. This Yu Tianjiao is too unlucky. Yu Tianjiao has really fallen this time. The array is gone. It would be strange if he didn't die. Didn't you see that his 9 blood-red swords have become ownerless? On the square of King City, there was an earth-shattering discussion. Yu Tianjiao had fallen. He had really fallen. As for the other experts, even if they failed or died, as long as they left the array, they would be fine. But Yu Tianjiao and Lin Yi's battle broke the array, causing Yu Tianjiao to die completely. Although the competition in the royal feast was intense, but no one died. Yu Tianjiao was the first expert to fall. If not for Lin Yi's appearance, Yu Tianjiao would have been number 1 without a doubt. But now, he was unlucky enough to die. This was luck. They could only be speechless. His death was purely an accident. For a time, countless experts sighed for Yu Tianjiao's fate. Yu Tianjiao's fall made the other experts extremely happy, because they had lost their most terrifying opponent. Without Yu Tianjiao, they still had a chance to compete for number 2. Number 1, of course, they didn't dare to imagine. Lin Yi was number 1. Who would dare to challenge him? Lin Yi killed a competitor for the royal feast. He deserves death. Yu Luo Feng's face was extremely pale. He was from a Yu family, one of the 2 4th-grade powers in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. The Yu family's power was comparable to the royal family. Even the royal family had to be courteous to the Yu family. Yu Qianjiao was the pinnacle of his generation in the Yu family. He could have become the next leader of the Yu family. Who would have thought that he would fall at the royal feast? How could he not be angry? Yu Luo Feng was one of the supreme elders of the Yu family. He was an existence that surpassed the half-saint level. At this moment, he was filled with killing intent. He had to kill Lin Yi in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. Yu Tian Feng, you bastard. Swords have no eyes on the battle stage. Yu Qianjiao's injuries and deaths in the space of the deployment spell were all fake deaths. When the deployment spell was broken, Yu Qianjiao really died. In that case, if Lin Yi hadn't reversed the situation, Lin Yi would have died. Also, can you control the fate of the competitors for the royal feast? Hearing that Yu Luo Feng wanted to blame Lin Yi for Yu Tianjiao's death, all the experts were shocked. However, they didn't dare to say anything because the Yu family was too powerful. However, as the leader of the Saint Spirit Heaven sect, Dongwu Shuejian had to stand up. Chapter 236. In fact, Dongwu Shuejian was afraid too. After all, the Yu family was the most powerful family in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, a 4th-grade power. And the Holy Spirit Heaven sect was only a 5th-grade power. Compared to the Yu family, the Holy Spirit Heaven sect was like a creation realm cultivator facing a powerful celestial realm cultivator. Moreover, the Holy Spirit Heaven sect was facing several celestial realm cultivators. However, Lin Yi was too important to the Holy Spirit Heaven sect. If he hadn't seen Lin Yi's performance today, he wouldn't have offended Yu Luo Feng and the Yu family. Of course, Lin Yi was in the right this time, and it was a competition in front of everyone. Yu Tianjiao had died in an accident. Besides, Blades had no eyes on the battle stage. It was normal for a prodigy to die. More importantly, Lin Yi had participated in the royal banquet and won first place. The Tianyang Empire had a rule that anyone who participated in the competition would be hunted down by the Tianyang Empire. The Yu family is too shameless. Yu Qianjiao was killed, and they blamed the opponent. The world belongs to the Yu family. If that's the case, then don't let Yu Qianjiao participate in the competition. If Lin Yi died, he wouldn't say a word. He would even cheer loudly. A 4th-grade power is too powerful. Don't talk nonsense, or you'll be targeted by the Yu family. I don't believe he dares to go against the laws of the Tianyang Empire. No matter how powerful the Yu family is, it's like an ant facing a dragon in front of the Tianyang Empire. In the plaza, no one dared to talk about the Yu family. But soon, there were more and more people, and the sounds of discussion gradually increased. There were more than 1 million strong fighters watching the battle. Even if they were talking, the Yu family didn't know who was talking. It was impossible for the Yu family to kill all the strong fighters in the plaza. Although the Yu family was powerful, they weren't powerful enough to go against all the strong fighters in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. And they weren't powerful enough to go against the Tianyang Empire. Dongwu Shuejian, who do you think you are? I said that Lin Yi should be punished for his crimes, so he should be punished. Yu Luo Feng was furious. The dignified Yu clan's #1 freak was killed. He was already on the verge of going berserk. He hadn't thought that the Saint Soul Heavenly Sect would dare to go against him. He was simply courting death. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the square of King City, and if it weren't for Ming Wang, he would have already killed Dongwu Shuejian and Lin Yi. Yu Luo Feng, watch your words. Lin Yi is a genius of the Heavenly Sun Empire. This is an accident. Yu Qianjiao was unlucky. Of course, his strength and talent are not as good as Lin Yi's. If your Yu family continues like this, you won't be far from decline. Take the 9 blood swords back. Dishiyu's bland voice could be heard. There was no change in his expression, and his tone was flat. However, it gave people a feeling that it was impossible to disobey. It was as if he was the king of a kingdom. The 9 blood swords were 900 patterned saint weapons, and they were a set. Even the Yu family couldn't take out a second set like this. Originally, Lin Yi was the winner, and the blood swords belonged to Lin Yi. However, he asked Yu Luo Feng to take them back. It was to appease the Yu family's anger. Yu Luo Feng didn't expect Yu to stand on Lin Yi's side. However, he quickly understood that Yu was from the Heavenly Sun Empire. Although he had always been in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, his status wasn't much lower than Ming Wang's. Moreover, he had the Heavenly Sun Empire behind him. Before he could finish, he saw Yu's gaze sweeping over. Seeing Yu's gaze, his entire mind couldn't help but tremble. I announced that Lin Yi is the number 1 of the royal banquet. Now, according to the rankings, those who aren't satisfied with their ranking have a chance to challenge. Yu retracted his gaze. He announced that Lin Yi was the number 1 of this year's royal banquet. He allowed the other monstrous powerful beings to challenge the ranking they wanted. Of course, no one could challenge Lin Yi now because he already had 10 points and was number 1. Furthermore, even if Lin Yi allowed the other monstrous beings to challenge him, no one would dare to have such thoughts. Wasn't challenging Lin Yi courting death? Your Majesty Ming Wang, does the array need to be repaired? A peerless expert not far away from His Majesty asked. No need. Could it be that one can revive after death in the future world? Ming Wang asked. He had a smile on his face. Hearing Ming Wang's words, the powerful beings in the square were all shocked. Without the array, one couldn't revive after death. It was easy to die in such a battle. However, they all knew what Ming Wang meant. If the monstrous powerful beings wanted to become stronger, how could they become powerful without experiencing death? Next, the challenges of the 8 monstrous powerful beings continued. Lin Yi left the battle stage and returned to Silent Soul's side. At this point, the competition of the royal banquet had nothing to do with him. He had gotten first place, and it was easier than expected. At least he defeated Yu Qianjiao, the first prince, and Lai Tenyu without using divine will. What made him excited was his sword intent had finally broken through the shackles and reached the realm of sword. To him, this breakthrough was more important than breaking through 10 realms of the martial Dao. Congratulations, young master. Junior brother Lin, congratulations. Congratulations, junior brother Lin. Silent Soul, Chu Yunyan, and Huang Tianxiao congratulated Lin Yi. To be able to get first place in the royal banquet, although he wasn't the strongest in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, he was definitely a super powerful being in the celestial realm. His future was limitless. Very good, keep up the good work. The sect master said with a smile on his face. This was the first time he smiled in front of a junior. Indeed, he didn't expect Lin Yi to get first place in the royal banquet. Not to mention him, even the entire Cloudy Sky Kingdom didn't expect Lin Yi to get first place. Of course, Silent Soul understood Lin Yi's strength and knew that Lin Yi had a great chance. In the Holy Spirit Heaven sect, Lin Yi was the first one who was qualified to enter the Great Xiao World ruins. Lin Yi's talent was definitely unprecedented in the Holy Spirit Heaven sect. Lin Yi understands. Lin Yi nodded. He was grateful that the sect master stood out to protect him. Although the sect master and the Holy Spirit Heaven sect might not be able to protect him, at least the sect master protected Yu Luo Feng in that situation. That was enough. Now he understood how important it was to have a sect and a family. Lin Yi didn't even look at the following challenges. He sat in his seat and closed his eyes to rest. After digesting the devouring blade formation and the sword intense power, even though he had cultivated a realm of sword, it wasn't stable and he wasn't familiar with it. He took this time to stabilize it. Seeing Lin Yi train, the others were impressed. No wonder he was so powerful. Chapter 237. Time passed by quickly. The battles on the battle stage were intense. Although they no longer had the protection of the formation, in order to compete for the remaining 2 spots, they fought with all their might. In the end, Lai Tenyu was ranked 2nd. The 3rd prince was ranked 3rd. Prince Devilblood was ranked 4th. The 7th prince was ranked 5th. Prince Ninyang was ranked 6th. There were originally 10 spots, but one of the strongest, Yu Qianjiao, had fallen. The strong fighters of the Yu family hated Lin Yi and the Holy Soul Heaven sect to the core. However, they couldn't do anything to Lin Yi and could only watch. And Lin Yi, who was hated by countless strong fighters of the Yu family, was calm. However, he was still cultivating his domain of swords as if nothing had happened. You are all the strongest geniuses of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. The future of the Cloud Sky Kingdom depends on you. This is a reward for all of you. The host of the royal banquet was Dishiyu. Ming Emperor didn't speak at all. When the royal banquet ended, Ming Emperor spoke. Suddenly, countless strong fighters were curious about the rewards of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. They didn't know what Ming Emperor was going to reward the top 10. Was it resources, wealth, weapons, or techniques? After Ming Emperor finished speaking, he then ordered his men to deliver the 9 storage pouches to Lin Yi and the others. Those who received the rewards were curious, but they didn't open the storage bags. This made all the strong fighters in the square feel tempted, but they couldn't do anything. Lin Yi, Lai Tenyu, third prince. The 3 of you can only stay in the royal palace for 3 days. After 3 days, you will go to the Tianyang Empire. If you deal with the competitors within these 3 days, you will be sentenced to death. Dishiyu said. The royal banquet ended. Letting the top 3 stay in the royal palace was to protect them. No one would dare to deal with them in the royal palace. At the same time, they were reminded that dealing with the competitors was a crime punishable by death. No one dared to violate the laws of the Tianyang Empire. His gaze, intentionally or otherwise, glanced at Yu Luo Feng. His meaning was clear. In the entire Cloud Sky Kingdom, the one who hated Lin Yi the most was naturally the Yu family. One had to know that Yu Qianjiao was the hope of the Yu clan, but Lin Yi had destroyed their hope. It would be strange if the Yu clan didn't hate Lin Yi. Lin Yi, remember this. Where there's life, there's hope. What is an expert? It is to live longer than others, to live more freely than others. To live is to win, and to live is to have hope. You have to be extremely careful when you enter the Grand Xiao world ruins. This is for you. Come back to the sect and take a look when you have time. The sect master said to Lin Yi. He knew that Lin Yi might not return to the Shengling Heavenly Sect after this trip. No matter what, Lin Yi was from the Holy Spirit Heaven Sect. He was the pride of the sect. At the end of his speech, he handed a jade talisman to Lin Yi. Then, he left with Chu Yunyan and Huang Tianxiao, disappearing into the crowd. Young master, should I stay in the Yuntian Kingdom or follow you to the Heavenly Sun Empire? Silent Soul asked Lin Yi softly after the sect master and the other 2 left. She was looking forward to it. She wanted to follow Lin Yi to the Heavenly Sun Empire. This way, she would have more opportunities and time with Lin Yi. If she didn't go to the Heavenly Sun Empire, she would have to separate from Lin Yi. She didn't know how long it would take. Follow me to the Heavenly Sun Empire. Lin Yi glanced at Silent Soul and answered. Silent Soul was powerful. She had 49 darkness domain. If she was nurtured, she would definitely be an incredible expert. She could help him if she stayed by his side. Okay. When Silent Soul heard that Lin Yi wanted her to follow him to the Heavenly Sun Empire, she was so excited that she could fly. A sweet and charming smile appeared on her beautiful face. This smile was so beautiful that it could topple a city. While the 2 were talking, the experts in the square gradually dispersed. Dishiyu, the 3rd prince, and Lai Tenyu looked at them. Lin Yi didn't say anything and walked towards Dishiyu with Silent Soul. Greetings, Senior Dishiyu. Walking up to Dishiyu, Lin Yi slightly bowed and greeted him. Dishiyu was a peerless expert. He was a few realms higher than Lin Yi. According to seniority, he was indeed a senior. It was normal to greet him. Moreover, to go to the Heavenly Sun Empire, they had to rely on Dishiyu. Okay, you want to take her to the Heavenly Sun Empire? Dishiyu nodded with satisfaction. He was very satisfied with Lin Yi's talent and strength. As the Heavenly Sun Empire's inspector in the Yuntian Kingdom, he was looking for geniuses for the Empire. However, the Yuntian Kingdom didn't have many geniuses. Originally, he was optimistic about Yu Qianjiao and the First Prince. He didn't expect that the 2 of them would be defeated or killed by Lin Yi. Whether it was talent or strength, Lin Yi was much stronger than Yu Tianjiao and the first prince. Such a genius was discovered by him. In the future, he would have the confidence to speak in the Heavenly Sun Empire. In this world, the strong were respected. There were as many geniuses as dogs. However, there weren't many peak geniuses. Lin Yi was one of those rare peak geniuses. The Empire would naturally value such a monstrous talent. Although he was an expert, he might have to rely on this monstrous talent who had yet to mature in the future. Senior Dishiyu. She is one of Lin Ye's people. Lin Yi nodded and answered Dishiyu. Heavenly Fox Clan. Devastatingly beautiful. In the Heavenly Sun Empire, she will bring you a lot of trouble. Dishiyu retracted his gaze from Silent Soul. He was indeed stunned by Silent Soul's appearance and temperament. She was simply a beauty that could bring disaster to the country. Such a beauty would definitely be pursued by countless heaven-defying geniuses in the Heavenly Sun Empire. Naturally, she would bring endless trouble to Lin Yi. Trouble? This junior is indeed afraid of trouble. However, I am the best at solving problems. I hope that the people who find trouble with me have eyes. Lin Yi smiled. Trouble? He was really afraid of trouble. However, he was good at solving problems. Those who found trouble with him had already disappeared from this world. The Heavenly Sun Empire was a powerful behemoth. There were countless experts and geniuses. However, Lin Yi wasn't someone to be trifled with either. It's good that you are mentally prepared. Dishiyu glanced at Lin Yi intentionally or unintentionally. The young man in front of him gave off a natural confidence. He suddenly had a feeling that he couldn't see through the young man in front of him. When this thought arose, he couldn't help but feel shocked because he had never felt this way before. After that, he led the third prince, Lai Tenyu, Lin Yi, and Silent Soul in the direction of the royal family. A group of people. Soon, they entered the royal palace of the Heavenly Cloud Kingdom. Chapter 238. After entering the palace guards made arrangements for Lin Yi and the others. Other than the third prince, Lai Tenyu and Lin Yi lived in the Whirlwind Palace. This place was not far from the Wise King's harem. The defensive power was also the strongest. When Lin Yi arrived, he felt countless terrifying auras. These auras flashed by, obviously to show off. Every aura was at the level of a half-saint. With so many half-saints, who had the ability to cause trouble here. Brother Lin, goodbye. The third prince was called Sun Wuyu. Originally, he didn't have much chance to get a spot this time. However, Lin Yi had imperceptibly helped him get rid of the first prince and Yu Tianjiao. In this way, he had lost two of his greatest rivals and became one of the three candidates. In his heart, he was very grateful to Lin Yi. Moreover, he understood. Lin Yi was much stronger than him. He had to make friends with such a person. Goodbye. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Seeing the third prince leave, he politely parted with Lai Tenyu. The two had fought before, but that was only when they were competing. There was no hatred at all. In other words, Lin Yi also helped him. The Whirlwind Palace was huge. Not to mention 2 or 3 people. Even 100 more people could live here. Lin Yi and Silent Soul came to the East Palace. Young master, you can cultivate. Silent Soul is calling for you. Silent Soul bowed and said to Lin Yi, okay, this technique is suitable for you. Cultivate this technique in the future. The Heavenly Fox Clan should be in the Light Realm. You are in control of the Dark Realm. There's a possibility that the Light Realm still exists in you. It's just that it hasn't been activated yet. This technique can activate your Light Realm. Lin Yi nodded. Then he thought of something. With a thought, he took out a jade scroll. He handed the jade scroll to Silent Soul. He said, the Dark Secret Tome. Silent Soul took the jade scroll and scanned it with her divine sense. She knew the information in the jade scroll. She couldn't help but be shocked, but more excited. Although she was curious about where Lin Yi got this dark technique, she didn't think too much about it. Because Lin Yi cared about her, that was enough. Cultivate well. Lin Yi finished speaking, he went into the room. In the room, he released Qing Ming Liuli to protect him. With the help of the dark glaze, even if an ordinary half-saint came, it would be able to resist for a while and create a chance for him to react. After everything was done, With a thought, Lin Yi took out the jade talisman given to him by the sect master. Until now, he still didn't know what it was. A talisman. Thousand Miles talisman can be used 3 times. As soon as he took out the jade talisman, Bai Luo, who was in his sea of consciousness, told him the origin of this jade talisman. It was a type of talisman. It was simple to use, but its power was amazing. It could teleport people thousands of miles away, and it could be used 3 times. Such a talisman was definitely a life-saving item for escape. Even if he couldn't win, he could use this talisman to escape. Will there be an accident? Lin Yi seemed to be talking to himself, but he was actually communicating with Biluo. He had been tricked and suffered a loss. This kind of talisman left a shadow in him. This is a talisman from ancient times. It only takes 2 breaths to activate the talisman, and it can teleport you thousands of miles away. If you escape, you can teleport thousands of miles away, and the opponent can't catch up. Unless you encounter a saint at the pinnacle. In that case, you won't be able to escape. Biluo didn't know that Lin Yi had suffered a loss before, but she knew about this talisman. It wouldn't go wrong. As long as you don't encounter a saint at the pinnacle, you can escape. I hope I don't need to use it. Lin Yi looked at the talisman and said. Then, he kept the talisman in the 9-fold space. After keeping the talisman, a storage bag appeared in his hand. This storage bag was a reward given to the top 10 of the royal feast by the Cloud Sky Kingdom. He was first, so he was curious about this reward. He didn't know what it was. Opening the storage bag, the items inside were imprinted in his eyes. A saint artifact longsword, an incomplete map, a black jade talisman. All 3 items were imprinted in Lin Yi's eyes. Looking at the 3 items, Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Then, he revealed a happy expression. The longsword was called the Crimson Sacred Sword. It was a powerful 100 inscriptions saint artifact. It was much stronger than the Sky Moon Sword that Lin Yi used in the past, because there were 300 inscriptions in it. The Sky Moon Sword was severely damaged in the battle with Yu Tianjiao. He didn't have the energy to repair it. To repair a 100 inscriptions saint artifact, he had to use the essence blood of the saint artifact's owner. Now that he had a better Crimson Sacred Sword, he was naturally happy. The incomplete map was actually a secret map of the Great Xiao World ruins. Of course, it was just an incomplete map of each area. It was recorded by the monstrous experts of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. After thousands of years of accumulation in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, the incomplete map was getting more and more complete. There were more and more places recorded. Of course, this was just for reference. To the monstrous experts who entered the Great Xiao World ruins, such an incomplete map was very important. Needless to say, only Lin Yi and the other 2 in the Cloud Sky Kingdom had this map. Finally, there was a black jade talisman. Lin Yi didn't recognize what kind of jade talisman it was. What was its use? He wanted to ask Biluo, but Biluo was in a deep sleep. Next, Lin Yi began to blood bond with the Crimson Sacred Sword. Blood bond with the Crimson Sacred Sword was completed. He began to cultivate. However, this time, he didn't cultivate the cultivation technique that he had cultivated before. Instead, he cultivated a powerful Saint Stage martial skill, Azura Hell. Yes, Azura Hell. A terrifying Saint Stage martial skill. Azura Hell had a total of 3 levels. Its power could destroy heaven and earth. It was just like Azura Hell. However, this move consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, the attack range was very wide. Within a radius of a few miles, not even a blade of grass could survive. According to some moralists, this was a demonic technique. With a powerful divine consciousness, one could comprehend and cultivate at an extremely fast speed. In 2 days, he successfully cultivated the first level of Azura Hell. Purgatory on Earth. This was the first level of Azura Hell. He, who was at the 8th level of the creation realm, felt that if he used Azura Hell, he could easily kill Yu Tianjiao. It was much more powerful than the first style of the Sky Sword 12 styles. Now, he had a terrifying attack. A chilling sword light. Azura Hell. Extermination Finger. Freezing Sky Aurora. Heavenly Emperor Fist. Every attack was a Saint Stage martial skill. Every Saint Stage martial skill was extinct in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. It was even rare to see Saint Stage martial skills in the Heavenly Purification territory. However, Lin Yi had mastered all Saint Stage martial skills. Cultivating these Saint Stage martial skills was much more difficult than cultivating Heaven Stage martial skills. At least, it required more time. Chapter 239. The Azura Hell cultivation was successful. Lin Yi thought that his spiritual sense had reached level 51. Level 51 spiritual sense could unlock the fifth seal of a 9-layer space. As for the fifth seal, Lin Yi was looking forward to it. As soon as he thought of it, his spiritual sense began to unlock the fifth seal of a 9-layer space. Boom, boom, inside the 9-layer space, there were bursts of roaring sounds like thunder. The space was constantly changing and only stopped after a quarter of an hour. At this moment, the 9-layer space was 100 times larger than it was at the beginning. Here, it was 1,000,000 miles in size. It was a real small world. Lin Yi was suspended in the center of this world. He was the master of this world. However, at this moment, he was suspended in the air in a daze. The expression on his face kept changing. Because in front of him, there was a mysterious radiance. The radiance seemed to have a life of its own. The entire space trembled and swayed with this radiance. This scene was incomparably strange. The power of space. It's actually the power of space, Lin Yi said to himself. As he spoke, he slowly stretched out his hand to grab this radiance. Buzz, as soon as his fingers touched the radiance, there was a slight sound in the space. Radiance. It enveloped Lin Yi and then merged into Lin Yi's body and disappeared. At the same time, Lin Yi closed his eyes slightly and gradually entered a state of selflessness. Everything outside was completely ignored. Time passed by minute. He stood in the air of a 9-layer space for 18 days. After 18 days, he opened his eyes. His eyes were like lightning and his face was filled with excitement. Space imprisonment. Lin Yi pointed out his right hand across the air. Suddenly, 1,000 meters away, 10 meters of space was suddenly imprisoned. In just a breath's time, this imprisoned space was restored to its original state. Although it was just a breath's time. But for the strong, this breath could change everything. This single breath was enough to kill a person countless times. I actually have the power of space in my body, Lin Yi said to himself. This 9-layer space was really full of surprises. Thinking that this 9-layer space was left behind by the master that he had yet to meet, he couldn't imagine how powerful his master was. After a long time, Lin Yi calmed down his excitement and shock. He exited the 9-fold space. After the fifth seal of the 9-fold space was unlocked, the time inside the 9-fold space was 32, one compared to the time outside. In other words, 32 days inside the 9-fold space was equivalent to 1 day outside. This way, he would have 32 times the cultivation time of others. Inside the room, the air twisted slightly, and Lin Yi's figure appeared. Less than an hour after he appeared, he sent Silent Soul walking toward his room. Young master. Silent Soul's sweet voice sounded. Yes. Lin Yi nodded, got up, and pushed the door open. This afternoon, to the Tianyang Empire. Senior D. Shur, the third prince, and Lai Tenyu are already waiting outside. Silent Soul said. Let's go. Lin Yi nodded and walked outside. When he and Silent Soul arrived outside the Whirlwind Palace, D. Shur Yu and the others were already waiting. This made Lin Yi feel a little awkward. If it was just Lai Tenyu and the third prince, it would be better. But D. Shur Yu was also waiting here, which made him feel a little apologetic. After all, D. Shur Yu's identity and status were extraordinary, and his strength was terrifying. Greetings, Senior D. Shur. Lin Yi stepped forward and bowed slightly to greet D. Shur Yu. He then nodded to the third prince and Lai Tenyu. Whoosh, whoosh, after the greeting, D. Shur Yu snapped his fingers, and a hurricane appeared in the air. The hurricane almost tore the space apart, and a strong pressure descended. Holy aura. This was the holy aura. When Lin Yi and the others felt the holy aura, a dark cloud appeared above their heads. It wasn't a dark cloud, but more like a dark cloud. At this moment, Lin Ye's face was filled with shock. This was because the thing that looked like a dark cloud was actually a huge flying demon beast. The flying demon beast's entire body was covered in gray, making it look like a dark cloud. When the flying beast spread its wings, it was about 20 meters in size. That holy aura was emitted from this demonic beast. Bam! With a muffled sound, the ground trembled slightly. The flying beast landed on the ground. Its dark and sharp eyes were emitting a beast aura. This is my battle partner. This time, it will carry us to the Heavenly Sun Empire. Be sure you walked in front of the flying beast, he said. As he spoke, he stroked the feathers of the flying beast. The flying beast was extremely docile, and it didn't look like a ferocious beast at all, but more like a pet. Battle partner? Lin Yi asked curiously. It was the first time he heard that a beast was a battle partner of a powerful warrior. One had to mention that in his mind, human beings were fighting against spirit beasts all the time. But now, Di Shiriyue said that spirit beasts were his battle partners, which indeed confused Di Shiriyue. The beast clan is not the enemy of humans. You will only understand when you reach a certain level. In this world, there is a law of the jungle. Only the truly powerful can survive in this law. You will understand in the future. Let's go and try to leave the kingdom of Cloud Sky today. Di Shiriyue glanced at Lin Yi. He was extremely curious. Logically speaking, a demonic beast like Lin Yi, with such a cultivation level, should be able to kill a demonic beast. He should know some secrets of Theta Scarabii. But looking at him now, he didn't know anything at all. Could it be that he didn't have a master? He naturally didn't know that Lin Yi really didn't have a master. He was just a registered disciple, and he was countless worlds away from the master he had never met. Whoosh, whoosh, Di Shiriyue took the lead and flew onto the back of the flying beast. Then Lin Yi and the other three also flew up carefully. Fortunately, the flying beast didn't make things difficult for them. Otherwise, with the strength of this beast, it could kill all of them with one flap of its wings. The back of the flying beast was enough to seat 7 or 8 people. As soon as they sat down, the flying beast flapped its huge wings. Suddenly, the space trembled, a hurricane tore through the space, and a terrifying wind wave spread out. Suddenly, the flying beast cut through the space. Like a sharp arrow, it pierced through the space and headed towards the void. In the blink of an eye, the flying beast took Lin Yi and the others away from the royal family and into the depths of the clouds. They were surrounded by blue sky and white clouds. There was also a strong wind that could destroy anyone below the creation realm. This speed was too terrifying. Although it couldn't be compared to teleportation, it was the fastest speed Lin Yi had ever seen. More importantly, this flying beast could fly for a long time, and its speed was getting faster and faster. After a while, Chapter 240. The Cloudy Sky Kingdom is thousands of miles away from the Heavenly Sun Empire. Even with flying beasts, it will take at least 3 months. In these 3 months, you can cultivate and try to improve your strength. When you reach the Heavenly Sun Empire, you must keep a low profile. That place is not something you can imagine. On the back of the flying beast, Di Shiriyue said seriously. He came from the Heavenly Sun Empire and had a high status with a powerful family behind him. The more he thought about it, the more he understood how powerful the Heavenly Sun Empire was. It was not something a kingdom could compare with. There were countless geniuses there. Lin Yi and the other 2 were the top geniuses in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. However, they were not outstanding in the Heavenly Sun Empire. Moreover, the 3 of them were from the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. In the eyes of the geniuses of the kingdom were like country bumpkins. They looked down on the geniuses and experts of the kingdom. There was a reason for this. The families and forces of the Heavenly Sun Empire, as well as the geniuses and experts, were all terrifying. Any powerful family or force could wipe out the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. More importantly, those geniuses had families. They had forces and sections, or they were after the Saint Realm. Lin Yi and the other 2 went to the Heavenly Sun Empire. Firstly, they had no strength. Secondly, they had no backing. If they offended the geniuses of the Heavenly Sun Empire, it would be a disaster. Senior Dishiyu, how long until the Great Xia World Ruins opens? Lin Yi asked Dishiyu curiously. Dishiyu's words meant that they would stay in the Heavenly Sun Empire and not directly enter the Great Xia World Ruins. If they stayed in the Heavenly Sun Empire for too long, he would have to plan carefully. Half a year. You will stay in the Heavenly Sun Empire for about 3 months. You two know a little about the Heavenly Sun Empire, right? Dishiyu said. At the end of his words, he looked at Lai Tenyu and the third prince, Sun Wuyu. Sun Wuyu's prince had some understanding of the Heavenly Sun Empire. Lai Tenyu was also the senior brother of a 5th grade force and knew a lot of things. Only Lin Yi knew too little. If he stayed in the Saint Spirit Heaven sect longer, he would know Theta Scarabii about the Heavenly Sun Empire. I know a little about Theta Scarabii. The third prince and Lai Tenyu nodded in reply. In a kingdom, the strongest force is a rank 4 force. However, the Tianyang Empire has thousands of rank 4 factions. Moreover, the Tianyang Empire's rank 4 factions are much stronger than the kingdom's rank 4 factions. In the Divine Continent, there are many sects and factions of the same rank, but the difference in strength is huge. Apart from the Tianyang Empire, there are also 10 Tianyang Empires Tianyang Empire and some Tianyang Empires Tianyang Empire. You can imagine the gap between the Cloudy Sky Kingdom and the Heavenly Sun Empire. Even if the 4 great kingdoms were to join forces, they might not be able to withstand a peak 4th grade force of an empire, let alone a 3rd grade force, said Di Shuriwei in a serious tone, although he had found some good seedlings in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. However, in front of the monstrous geniuses of the Heavenly Sun Empire, there was simply no comparison. The empire is so powerful. Senior Di Shur, is it true that there must be a saint in a 4th grade force? Lin Yu was shocked. He already knew that the Heavenly Sun Empire was powerful and that it was a stage for monstrous geniuses and experts. It was a paradise for the strong and the monstrous. It was hell on earth for the weak. However, he did not expect the Heavenly Sun Empire to be so ridiculously powerful. The Cloudy Sky Kingdom was already very strong, but in front of the Heavenly Sun Empire, the Cloudy Sky Kingdom was just an ant in front of a giant dragon. In other words, the Cloudy Sky Kingdom was just a remote subsidiary of the Heavenly Sun Empire. The real center was the Heavenly Sun Empire. Otherwise, the 2 empires would have more than 1,000 people each time they entered the Great Xia World Ruins, while the 4 great kingdoms only had 12 spots. It could be imagined that the Heavenly Sun Empire was just giving a little charity to the kingdoms. Otherwise, the Cloudy Sky Kingdom would not even have the qualifications to enter. One had to know that there were so many monstrous geniuses in the Heavenly Sun Empire. How could the Cloudy Sky Kingdom's geniuses be qualified? Lin Yi felt a lot of pressure. However, this pressure ignited his fighting spirit. The only thing he was curious about was whether a 4th grade force would definitely have a saint. For example, someone who surpassed the sect leader. Based on his intuition, the far-sighted king was a saint. Only with a saint is one qualified to establish a 4th grade force, because a saint will receive the saint medal of the Divine Temple. The road ahead is long and exciting, but also dangerous and exciting. You will slowly realize that the further you go, the more unfathomable this world is. It is far beyond your imagination. Dishiyu looked up at the void. He took a deep breath and spoke at a moderate pace. He had already become a saint, an existence that surpassed a half-saint. Moreover, he had a powerful 3rd grade clan behind him. He knew a lot of things and secrets. His vision of things had long surpassed the scope of mortals. Senior Dishiyu, is there a requirement to become a saint? As long as you cultivate, you will be able to break through the shackles and step onto the path of becoming a saint. In other words, it is like breaking through from the refined void realm to the creation realm. There is no need for external help. Lin Yi saw that Dishiyu is not a cold and old-fashioned person. He was easy to talk to. Thus, he asked for knowledge on cultivation. He did not know this knowledge at all. In a 4th grade force like the Shengling Heaven sect, he should have learned this knowledge. However, he had stayed in the Shengling Heaven sect for too short a time. There was no one to guide him, not to mention a master to teach him. Biluo rarely communicated with him on cultivation. He did not pass down any memory of his previous life. Or rather, some memories of his previous life were deliberately sealed, not wanting him to know now. Therefore, he was a complete novice on cultivation. The road to becoming a saint is difficult. To become a saint, you not only need talent and cultivation, but also the necessary conditions. These conditions are not difficult for big forces. The main thing is to rely on cultivation. Saint blood, saint chi, and saint weapons. All three are indispensable. Of course, the saint weapons must be 1,000 inscriptions saint weapons, not 100 inscriptions saint weapons. A true saint is not a true saint without 1,000 inscriptions saint weapons and saint-level martial techniques. Dishiyu looked at Lin Yi. Then he took out a jade slip from his storage bag. He entered the jade slip with his divine sense and carefully read the information in it. Only then did he realize that the young man in front of him was less than 19 years old. Moreover, he had not been in the Shengling Heaven sect for long. After reading some of Lin Ye's deeds and information, he knew that Lin Yi did not have a master and did not even know some of the most basic cultivation knowledge in this world. His vision was limited by those below the celestial realm. The more this was the case, the more shocked he was. It was hard to imagine that a genius without a master or background could reach such a level step by himself. The more this was the case, the more this young man was worth cultivating. Chapter 241. Sacred Blood. Sacred Chi. 1,000 Inscription, Sacred Weapon. Lin Yi muttered to himself. He already had sacred blood. He already had sacred chi. He didn't have 1,000 inscription sacred weapon, but he was only at the 8th level of the creation realm, and there was still some time before he reached the celestial realm. He hoped to find 1,000 inscription sacred weapon there. As for the sacred level martial skills, he used all the sacred level martial skills, and his cultivation method was also at the sacred level. In his heart, he couldn't help but have great expectations for the road to becoming a saint. He thought that after becoming a saint, he would become stronger, and he would be one step closer to the conditions of the master he had never met. What I just said is not too difficult. The real difficulty is the divine trial. If you want to become a saint, you have to go through 9 divine tribulations. Each divine trial is extremely terrifying. If you can't bear it, your cultivation will regress, and if it's serious, you will become a cripple, unable to cultivate, or even vanish. Only by going through 9 divine tribulations can you become a saint. Do you know why there are so many half-saints, but not many true saints? It's because of the divine tribulation. Either they die in the divine tribulation, or they become crippled, or their cultivation regresses, or they don't dare to casually cross the divine tribulation. Dishiyu had a smile on his face. He still had a lingering fear when he thought of how he had almost been destroyed in the divine trial. Divine trial? Lin Yi listened to Dishiyu's words and couldn't help but be stunned. This saint tribulation was simply too terrifying. It seemed that becoming a saint wasn't as easy as he had imagined. After the celestial realm transcendence golden body, you have to go through the first divine trial. If you succeed in the first divine trial, you will be a half-saint. After the half-saint, you will be a sage to be, then a sage to be, and then a great sage. As for the higher realms, you will know in the future. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Cultivate seriously, and don't die in the Tianyang Empire. There are thousands of top geniuses in the Tianyang Empire eyeing your spot. Dishiyu finished speaking. He closed his eyes and didn't intend to speak again. Thank you, Senior Dishiyu. Lin Yi saw Dishiyu's expression and didn't ask any more questions. Moreover, he didn't have anything important to ask Dishiyu. Knowing this, he felt curious and expectant. However, when he thought of his current cultivation state and the fact that he had to face the Heavenly Sun Empire and the Great Xiao World ruins, the pressure in his heart grew. It seemed like he had to raise his cultivation state as soon as possible. In the following days, the flying demonic beast carried Lin Yi and the others towards the Heavenly Sun Empire. As for them, they were cultivating on the backs of flying demonic beasts. Days passed. In half a month, Lin Ye's cultivation finally reached the 9th level of the creation realm as he wished. 2 months later, he asked Dishiyu to descend. After one day, his cultivation base finally broke through the fortune realm and stepped into the celestial being realm, becoming a celestial being. He stood at the pinnacle of mortal martial arts. Of course, he was on the back of a flying demonic beast. Furthermore, the flying demonic beast was still flying at high speed. In front of outsiders, he naturally wouldn't practice any martial skills or flashy cultivation methods. Instead, he cultivated the starry sky divine art and comprehended the second style of the 12 styles of sky sword. He was comprehending the changes in the realm. Most of the time, he was cultivating his divine sense and visualizing the 5 attributes and 4 abilities of the heaven will fan in his mind. Divine sense had always been his greatest trump card and trump card. It could be said to be a life-saving measure. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't expose it. With a level 51 divine sense, he could now use his divine sense to fight with a peak celestial being realm expert. Even if he encountered a half-saint expert, he could still fight. This was because his level 51 divine sense had already surpassed the celestial being realm and was comparable to a half-saint. If he used the heaven will fan, he could fight with a half-saint. After his cultivation reached the celestial being realm, his overall strength increased by a large margin. If he fought with Yu Qianjiao, Lai Tenyu, and the others, he could easily defeat them. However, after the celestial being realm, it was much more difficult to raise one's cultivation state than when he was in the creation realm. Each level required a very long time of cultivation. 2.5 months passed. Finally, the flying demonic beast entered the borders of the Heavenly Sun Empire. Within the Heavenly Sun Empire, even if one flew in the air, they wouldn't see any celestial being realm or half-saint experts. The closer they got to the heavenly city in the center of the Heavenly Sun Empire, the more experts there were. Almost all of them were in the creation realm and celestial being realm. Half-saint experts could be seen everywhere. Their powerful aura made people feel great pressure. Lin Yi had a feeling that he had entered the world of the giant dragons from the crocodile pool. In the past, he was considered a relatively powerful person. However, when he arrived here, he was at the bottom of the heap. Xiao, after another half a month, Lin Yi stood on the back of a flying beast. Looking at the experts and flying chariots flying in the air from time to time, as well as the experts emitting powerful auras, he was extremely shocked. At this time, he was stunned by the scene in the distance. 100 miles away, there was an endless sea of buildings. There were no walls. Countless lofts and castles formed an ocean. It was impossible to know how big it was. In the sky above this endless sea of cities, there was a soaring spiritual energy. There were also mysterious buildings in the sky that connected the buildings on the ground. This was the capital of the Tianyang Empire, Heaven City. This was the heaven for the strong and the evildoers, and hell for the weak. That's Heaven City, one of the 3 major cities in the heavenly purification territory. The Tianyang Empire's Heaven City, the Tianjin Empire's Tianjin Cloud City, and the Guild Alliance's Star Moon City are known as the 3 major cities. According to statistics, the entire Heaven City spans 30,000 miles from east to west and 30,000 miles from north to south. People who are not from Heaven City must enter and leave through the city gate. Otherwise, they will die without a burial place. In Heaven City, those below the saint realm cannot fly. Otherwise, they will die without a burial place. Remember this. Alright, during battles in Heaven City, combat partners are forbidden. Dishiyu pointed at the sea of buildings in the distance and said, returning here, he could not help but have mixed feelings. 30 years ago, he left here and went to the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. 30 years later, he returned again. When he left, he was only a half-saint. When he returned, he had already stepped into the saint realm. He told Lin Yi and the others all the things to take note of in Heaven City. It was their first time in Heaven City. If they did not know the rules, they might get into trouble. We'll remember it. Lin Yi and the others listened carefully. They did not miss a single word. Moreover, the third prince and Lai Tenyu were still a little nervous. They no longer had the arrogance they had during the battle in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. After all, the Tianyang Empire was not the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. When they came here, the original dragon became a worm. In other words, in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, they were dragons and faced countless worms. However, after entering the Tianyang Empire, they became one of the countless worms. It would be strange if they did not feel nervous when facing the powerful giant dragons. On the other hand, Lin Ye's expression was calm. His heart was burning with fighting spirit. Chapter 242. After giving his instructions, Dishiyu brought Lin Yi and the rest down to the ground. They tried their best to keep a low profile as they walked towards the symbolic city gate. Heaven City had no city walls, but ordinary experts could only pass through the city gate. The so-called city gate was just a signboard. They heard about it from Dishiyu. Although Heaven City had no city walls, it had an invisible defense and restriction. As long as someone dared to cause trouble in Heaven City, the restriction would quietly kill the troublemaker. The more invisible it was, the more terrifying it was. Heaven City was such an existence. Entering Heaven City, apply for an entry token, 10,000 spiritual stones. To stay in Heaven City, you must have a family or force of 4th rank and above as a guarantor. Your personal wealth must be at least 1 million. The few of them arrived at the city gate. They were stopped by the patrolling guards at the gate. As Lin Yi and the rest did not have an entry token, they had to apply for a token to enter Heaven City and pay 10,000 spiritual stones as a service fee. This made Lin Yi extremely surprised. He did not expect to have to pay a service fee to enter Heaven City, and it was 10,000 spiritual stones. 10,000 spiritual stones per person. 10,000 spiritual stones was equivalent to 100 million gold coins. Of course, after the battle in the Sky Sea realm, his wealth was definitely at the top of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. Even if he came to a place like the Heavenly Sun Kingdom, he would still be considered a top tycoon in terms of personal wealth. However, he had never used spiritual stones before. What made him even more shocked was that if one wanted to stay in Heaven City, they had to have a family or force of 4th rank and above as their guarantor. There is also the condition of personal wealth. Without 1 million spiritual stones, one could forget about staying in Heaven City. To put it bluntly, Heaven City did not need poor people and trash. Only the strong and the evildoers, or the rich and powerful people, were qualified to stay in Heaven City. Dishi family, Dishiyu, from the Cloud Sky Kingdom, heading to the Great Xia World ruins. Dishiyu said coldly. As he spoke, a white token appeared in his hand. This token had the symbol of the Dishi family on it. It had a faint glow, giving people a symbol of status. So you're from the Dishi family, entering the Great Xia World ruins? Then let's go through the temporary residence procedures. There are still 3 months before the opening of the Great Xia World ruins. For 4 months, each person has to pay 40,000 spiritual stones. Hearing Dishi Yu's identity, Li Mu was shocked. The patrolling expert's expression froze, and his tone became much more polite. Glancing at the tablet held in Dishi Yu's hand, Jihao confirmed Dishi Yu's identity and social status, then began the temporary stay procedure for Lin Yi and the other 3, paying 40,000 energy stones for each of them. There was no discussion at all. Lin Yi didn't say anything as he took out 80,000 spirit stones, settling the procedures for Silent Soul and himself. Lai Tenyu and the 3rd prince were the same, not daring to speak. Seeing this situation, Lin Yi felt sullen, even though the 2 of them were his opponents and were not familiar with him. However, the 2 of them were from the Cloud Sky Kingdom, just like him. During the 3 months of travel, they had more or less interacted with each other. Although they couldn't be considered friends, they appreciated each other's talents. Now that he saw the 2 of them in such a state after coming to Heaven City, he could not help but feel uncomfortable. Very soon their tokens were all processed. A drop of essence blood activated the token and instantly connected with the token. Moreover, there was an invisible connection with some kind of defense of Heaven City, as if they had received the recognition of Heaven City. In the token, there was Lin Ye's basic information and cultivation. Character, Lin Yi. Country, affiliated country of the Tiandu Empire, Cloud Sky Kingdom. Position, None. Wealth? None. Resident? No. Entry reason. Entry to the Great Xia World Ruins. Introducer, Dishiyu. Simple information. So simple that it could be ignored. Moreover, this token was not connected with his identity crystal. This was normal, because this token was only for temporary stay, not permanent stay. After settling the procedures, Dishiyu brought Lin Yi and the other three into Heaven City. Entering Heaven City, Lin Yi and the others were completely shocked. How was this a city? This was completely an independent fairyland. Birds chirped, flowers bloomed, and spiritual energy was dense. The pavilions and apartments were faintly discernible in the spiritual fog, and the beautiful geniuses were like fairies in a fairyland. If they did not know that this was Heaven City, they would really think that they were in a dream world. You have three choices. One is to stay temporarily in the relay station. 2 is to stay in an inn. 3 is to follow me to the Dishi family. Think about it. You will have to walk your own path in the future. I'm only responsible for bringing you to Heaven City. After entering Heaven City, Dishiyu brought the 4 to report. His mission was to go to the Cloud Sky Kingdom as an inspector. He was to check out the geniuses of the kingdom and host the royal banquet. Now that the mission was completed, Lin Yi and the others had nothing to do with him. Their future path was up to Lin Yi and the others. I will go to the Dishi family. I will also go to the Dishi family. Lai Tenyu and the third Prince Sun Wuyu spoke without hesitation. They directly chose to go to the Dishi family. They knew Dishi Yu's identity and that he had a huge background in Heaven City. At least there was no problem with their safety at the Dishi family. Senior Dishi, I will stay temporarily in the relay station. Lin Yi pondered for a while and answered Dishiyu. Although the Dishi family was relatively safe, there were always gains and losses. Being too safe wouldn't do him any good. Moreover, he didn't want to get Dishiyu involved. And as you wish. Dishiyu's expression didn't change. However, he couldn't help but feel surprised. At the same time, he felt a trace of displeasure. After all, he was the one who brought Lin Yi to Heaven City. Lin Yi should follow him to the Dishi family. There was another unspoken rule. That was, the geniuses brought back by the inspector were equivalent to the people of the inspector. Lin Yi not going to the Dishi family now made Dishiyu feel a bit uncomfortable. However, he didn't explain. Lai Tenyu and the third prince couldn't help but look at Lin Yi. The two of them naturally didn't know that Lin Yi didn't know about these unspoken rules. Thank you, Senior Dishi. Lin Yi bowed. He slightly bowed to Dishiyu. Dishiyu nodded and turned to leave. Lai Tenyu and the third prince also followed Dishiyu and left. Lin Yi watched the three of them leave. He felt that the atmosphere was a bit strange, but he didn't know what he did wrong. After the three of them left, Lin Yi came back to his senses. Young master, Silent Soul gently called Lin Yi. Let's go to the relay station and settle down. Take advantage of these 3 months to improve your strength. This time, we will face countless geniuses in the Great Xia World Ruins. Lin Yi said. Then, he walked towards the relay station. The relay station of the Heavenly Sun Empire was specially used to receive guests from the 4 kingdoms and other countries. The living environment was elegant and quiet, which was suitable for cultivation. Chapter 243. The relay station was located at the center of Sky City, the busiest place. With the Empire's guards around, no one dared to cause trouble here. The small courtyards and pavilions were all very quiet. Lin Yi came from the Cloudy Sky Kingdom and had a spot to enter the Great Xia World Ruins. Naturally, he had the right to stay in the relay station. The receptionist politely arranged for Lin Yi and Silent Soul to stay in a pavilion. Young Master Lin, Goddess Silent Soul, you can stay here. If there's anything you need, just let me know. The receptionist was a young man. He looked to be around 27 or 28 years old and was at the Blessed Realm. Blessed Realm cultivators were considered powerful in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, but in Sky City, they were at the bottom. To be able to find a decent job in Sky City, they were considered lucky. Although Lin Yi and Silent Soul were quite young, he didn't dare to underestimate them at all. People like him had seen countless people and knew that he couldn't afford to offend them. To be able to stay in the relay station meant that he couldn't afford to offend them. Another reason was that Lin Yi came to the Tianyang Kingdom to enter the Great Xiao World ruins. Every kingdom only had 3 spots, and these 3 spots had to be taken by the 3 most powerful geniuses in the kingdom. Lin Yi was without a doubt one of the 3 most powerful geniuses in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Even if the Cloudy Sky Kingdom was just a vassal of the Tianyang Kingdom, the 3 most powerful geniuses in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom were not people he could compare to. Thank you for your trouble. Lin Yi smiled. He took out a storage pouch from the 9-fold space and tossed it to the young man. Then, he activated the defensive restriction of the pavilion and entered it. Money makes the world go round. Gifts blind one's eyes, and one's mouth softens. A month's salary. Seeing Lin Yi and Silent Soul enter the pavilion, the young man opened the storage pouch. When he saw the spiritual stones in the storage pouch, he couldn't help but exclaim. There were 10,000 spiritual stones. Even if he was at the blessed realm, he would need to work for a month to earn 10,000 spiritual stones. He didn't expect Lin Yi to give him a reward that was equivalent to a month's salary. In the Heavenly Sun Empire, the salary of every job was closely related to one's cultivation. Only by reaching the Yin-Yang realm could one find a job. A Yin-Yang realm cultivator could only earn a few hundred spirit stones a month. A Void Refinement realm cultivator could earn 1 or 2,000 spirit stones, and a Creation realm cultivator could earn about 6 or 7,000 spirit stones a month. It was indeed rare for a cultivator to earn 10,000 spirit stones. In the pavilion of the relay station, Lin Yi focused on his training, while Silent Soul left the relay station to gather information about Sky City. Your domain is improving too slowly. I have to get the water of innocence as soon as possible. Only by nurturing the chaotic sacred tree will you be able to quickly improve your domain. Moreover, you only have the gold domain and the sword domain now. You haven't cultivated the other domains yet. In the Sea of Consciousness, Biluo woke up. He communicated with Lin Yi. Lin Yi's 99 gold domains were considered very high among the celestial realm and even half-saints. However, in Biluo's eyes, this domain was too weak. There is only one sword domain. The water of innocence is difficult. That's right. Turn a demon into a battle partner. Look at this. Lin Yi shook his head. It was too difficult to get the water of innocence. Moreover, the Heavenly Sun Empire was too far away from the Wu Wang Dragon Palace. It was impossible to fly there in 3 months. Even if he reached the Wu Wang Dragon Palace, he wouldn't be able to get the water of innocence. Fortunately, Silent Soul had given him the Heavenly Heart Divine Fruit. Thinking of the battle partner that Dishi mentioned, he couldn't help but think of the young egg he obtained in the Sky Sea realm. It was the size of a bowl. He didn't know what demon's egg it was, but it seemed that this egg could still hatch. However, he had been cultivating and didn't have time to study this egg. Heavenly Phoenix Egg, the ancient divine Phoenix Egg. I didn't expect you to obtain such a magical thing. It could be said that this egg can be ranked in the top 10 of your treasures. Biluo was in Lin Yi's Sea of Consciousness. However, her divine was very strong, almost as strong as Lin Yi's. Seeing the egg, she couldn't help but be surprised. This was because she recognized the origin of this egg. It was a Heavenly Phoenix Egg, the descendant of the ancient divine Phoenix. It was sealed and preserved until today. She was shocked. Can it hatch? Lin Yi was also shocked. The Sky Sea realm was indeed the holy land of martial arts. Not only did he descend to the Sky Sea realm in his previous life, but the treasures left by his master were also in the Sky Sea realm. The demons were also in the Sky Sea realm. The divine dragons were in the Sky Sea realm. And now, the descendant of the ancient divine Phoenix was also in the Sky Sea realm. This Sky Sea realm was really not simple. No, of course, with me here, it's not like there's no way. Biluo said. Her tone gave people a sense of pride. You have the ability to hatch. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. Biluo was a woman. Hearing that she had a way, he couldn't help but think of her hatching the egg. What do you think? You humph, Biluo's smug voice sounded. Before she realized the meaning behind Lin Ye's words, she couldn't help but snort when she realized it. What's the way? Lin Yi asked. A blazing flames, sacred crystal. Find a volcanic cave. Biluo said. An ancient heavenly phoenix egg. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to hatch it. But since it was her, it wasn't that there was no way to hatch the egg, but there were some conditions. A volcanic cave isn't a problem. The Tianyang Empire definitely has it. But what is a blazing flames sacred crystal? How do I get it? Lin Yi was stunned. A volcanic cave wasn't a problem. The Tianyang Empire definitely had a lot of them. But he didn't know what the blazing flames sacred crystal was, and he didn't know if he could get it. Since it's an empire, the blazing flames sacred crystal isn't difficult to get. Once you get the blazing flames sacred crystal, go find a volcanic cave, and I'll help you hatch the heavenly phoenix egg. By then, the heavenly phoenix will be able to fight with you as a mount. Biluo finished and went back to sleep. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment before he put the egg away. With a thought, the 9-layer space opened. A palm-sized armor appeared in front of him. Next to the armor, there was a thin broadsword. The armor and broadsword floated in front of him. Refined, Lin Yi looked at the armor and broadsword. He sacrificed a drop of blood essence and began to refine the armor and broadsword. He got the armor and broadsword when he opened the box. The master that he had never met left them to him. He didn't know how powerful the armor was, but he was looking forward to it. The main thing was that the armor and broadsword were a complete set. The power of a complete set of treasures was even more terrifying, just like Yu Tianjiao's 9 blood sword. A single blood sword was indeed very powerful. But when all 9 blood swords were used together, the power was unimaginable. Time passed by second. Chapter 244. The refining of the armor and broadsword was completed. It was only at this moment that Lin Yi knew the grade and power of the armor and broadsword. 10,000 inscription sacred artifact, a complete set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts. Feeling the power of this set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts, Lin Yi was completely shocked. His master, whom he had never met, was too generous. A set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts appeared in the first box. In other words, his master did not care about 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts at all. The reason why he left a set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts was for him to deal with when his cultivation was low. 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts were many times more powerful than 100 inscription sacred artifacts and 1,000 inscription sacred artifacts. Moreover, a complete set of sacred artifacts was thousands of times more powerful than a single sacred artifact. One could imagine how powerful this set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts would be after using it. Silver Star Armor. Silver Star Sacred Sword. With this set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts, I can even fight against a saint. Lin Yi muttered to himself. With a thought, the armor appeared on his body. The silver armor made him look extremely handsome. The broadsword was as wide as a palm and 4 feet long. It exuded the power of a sacred artifact that could destroy heaven and earth. The power of a sacred artifact alone could suppress a celestial realm expert. Even if this set of 10,000 inscription sacred artifacts encountered a single supreme sacred artifact, it would not be inferior at all. 3 days passed. Lin Yi had already finished refining the Silver Star armor and the Silver Star sacred sword. On top of that, his metal domain had reached 107. However, he was still far away from the first territory completion of 99,999 territories. Master. At this moment, Silent Soul's sweet and clear voice sounded. She pulled Lin Yi back to reality from his cultivation. Come in. Lin Yi slowly stopped his cultivation and opened his mouth to reply. After he finished speaking, Silent Soul carefully opened the door and walked in. Seeing that Lin Yi was not moving, she did not dare to say anything as she was worried that she would disturb Lin Ye's cultivation. After a while, Lin Yi opened his eyes. Silent Soul heaved a sigh of relief. Young master, we have some basic information about Heaven City. There's going to be a top-level auction soon. Silent Soul said. In these 3 days, she had managed to gather quite a bit of information. However, most of it was Heaven City's public secrets and some basic information. To her and Linyi, who had just arrived, this information was very important. In addition to some basic information, she also heard a big piece of news. Heaven City was going to hold a top-notch auction. What are the entry conditions? Linyi knew that ordinary people simply could not enter some high-grade auctions. Now, there were thresholds and restrictions to entering this kind of auction. Heaven tier, at the very least. A deposit of 10 million spirit stones. The quota for this auction is limited. There are 100,000 quotas. Silent Soul said. In fact, the threshold seemed high, but for Heaven City, it was not high at all. In Heaven City, celestial realm cultivators were everywhere. The only threshold was perhaps the deposit of 10 million. One had to know that a celestial realm cultivator would be considered impressive if they had 1 million spirit stones. A celestial realm cultivator with a net worth of 10 million was definitely a monstrous expert or someone with a huge background. Moreover, if the deposit alone was 10 million, then if there were good treasures in the auction, they would definitely have to use even more spirit stones to compete. In other words, those who wanted to enter the auction basically had a net worth of tens or even hundreds of millions. This auction, it's the same time as the Great Xiao World ruins. The competition will definitely be fierce. We can go take a look at the auction and bid for anything we need. Linyi revealed a faint smile on his face. He had never been to the auction before. However, he knew that the auction was another world. It was a competition of wealth. As long as one had money, they could bid for anything they wanted. Young master, look at this. Silent Soul handed a palm-sized beast skin to Linyi. She had spent a lot of effort to get her hands on this piece of beast skin. Wu Wang water. Linyi glanced at the beast skin. He saw that the beast skin was full of small words, recording countless precious treasures. Needless to say, these treasures would appear in the auction. Every time there was an auction, someone would know in advance what treasures would appear in the auction through some channels. Moreover, the auction house would turn a blind eye to it. This would help in the auction's transaction price. Because knowing in advance what treasures would be auctioned, some buyers who needed them would try their best to gather more wealth. One had to know that precious resources in this world were extremely rare and were often not something that could be measured by wealth. When Linyi saw the words Wu Wang water, his expression changed. He did not expect that the Wu Wang water would appear in this auction. This was exactly what he needed. He had already obtained several materials to cultivate the chaotic divine tree. These materials, all of them were treasures of heaven and earth. All of them were extinct in the divine continent. However, he had obtained all of them except for the Wu Wang water. As long as he obtained the Wu Wang water, he could cultivate the chaotic divine tree. By then, he would be able to comprehend the domain faster. The competition for the Wu Wang water will definitely be fierce. Because if the celestial realm and half-saint have the Wu Wang water to cleanse their minds, their chances of becoming a saint will be greater. Therefore, every time the Wu Wang water appears, the competition will be the fiercest. Although saints do not need the Wu Wang water, their juniors and disciples definitely need it. Silent Soul said unhurriedly. Linyi was not the only one who needed the Wu Wang water. All the other monstrous experts needed it. As long as they had not become a saint, they would want the Wu Wang water to increase their chances of becoming a saint. Also, the Wu Wang water would be of great help to the cultivation of the domain. I am determined to get the Wu Wang water, Linyi said seriously. He only needed the Wu Wang water to cultivate the chaotic divine tree. Now that the Wu Wang water was right in front of him, he had to seize it. Otherwise, he would have to go to the Wu Wang Dragon Palace. Even if he went to the Wu Wang Dragon Palace, he might not be able to obtain the Wu Wang water. Now, for him, the Wu Wang water was undoubtedly delivered to his doorstep. Young master, have you finished cultivating? Why don't we go sign up now? Silent Soul quietly looked at Linyi and asked. In the past 3 days, although she had been gathering information outside, she did not walk around much. She was full of praise for the environment of Sky City, but she did not have the opportunity to wander around. Linyi nodded. 100,000 spots was not a lot, but it was not a small number either. If there were no more spots, he would regret it to death. As he spoke, he had already stood up and was ready to sign up to get a spot to enter the auction house. Seeing this, Silent Soul was overjoyed. Chapter 245. The Cloud Palace auction house was not as hidden as the underground auction house. On the contrary, the Cloud Palace auction house was very conspicuous. A huge palace stood not far from the Sky City Square. This palace was the Cloud Palace auction house, and its grandeur was not inferior to the Imperial Palace. When they arrived at the auction house, it was not crowded, but it was also very lively. Although there were not many experts who signed up, there were a lot of people who came to watch. Linyi and Silent Soul looked around and then went straight to the registration area. At the registration area, there were hundreds and thousands of experts lining up. At a glance, those who signed up for the auction were mostly half-saints, with a few celestial realm experts. Seeing this scene, Linyi could only be shocked. In the Cloud Sky Kingdom, it was rare to see a half-saint. But in this place, half-saints were basically flying everywhere. As for places like the Yinshui Kingdom, not to mention half-saints, they did not even have a celestial realm expert. Linyi and Silent Soul joined the queue. After waiting for 2 hours, it was their turn. With a thought, they took out their token. The receptionist looked at Linyi, and after confirming the authenticity of the token, Linyi paid a deposit of 10 million spiritual stones, and the registration was successful. Silent Soul did the same. Number 89100, number 89101, Linyi and Silent Soul each held a token in their hands. On it was their seat number in the auction house. Out of the 100,000 spots, the two were already at 89,000, and there were only a little more than 10,000 spots left. There were still 4 days before the auction began, and in these 4 days, there would definitely be more experts coming to sign up. After signing up, Linyi and Silent Soul did not return to the relay station. Instead, they strolled around Sky City. Needless to say, cultivating in Sky City was indeed a pleasure, and the environment was like the immortal realm. Silent Soul's slender hand held onto Linyi's arm, making countless experts jealous. Boom, it was noon. Linyi and Silent Soul were strolling around, and suddenly there was a loud bang, followed by a flash of light. Instantly, countless experts began to discuss. 18 domains, that's too strong. Yuan Cheng, Celestial Realm, 3 flower at one's prominence, has 18 domains. Very strong indeed. I can't say that he's strong. 2 days ago, Xing Fengyue came to test himself. His 5 chi were at the peak of the rising sun, and his domain had reached 26. This is what you call a true monster. Although he didn't leave his name on the domain tower, he's definitely a terrifying existence. Countless voices of discussion, and everyone was shocked. Everyone was looking at the crystal tower in front of them. The crystal pagoda was 100 meters tall. It was crystal clear and exuded a mysterious radiance. At this moment, the top of the crystal pagoda was flickering with a reddish-orange radiance. The reddish-orange radiance was extremely dazzling. At a glance, they looked over. There were 10 crimson rays and 8 orange rays. Silent Spirit looked at the lively scene. Although it wasn't a sea of people, it was still extraordinarily lively. The tall crystal pagoda was especially eye-catching. Okay, Linyi nodded. He did not like to join in the fun, but since Silent Soul had spoken, he could not refuse. Then, the two walked toward the tower. Soon, they were not far from the tower. Here, there were thousands of experts surrounding the tower. A moment later, Linyi figured out what was going on from these discussions. This tower was called the Domain Tower. It could accurately test the power of a celestial realm expert's domain. Generally speaking, when a warrior cultivates a domain, he would be the clearest about his own domain. Of course, the power of his own domain was not necessarily accurate. Some experts had cultivated 10 domains, but when they were tested, they only had 9 domains. Some experts had cultivated 10 domains, but when they were tested, they had 11 domains. The domain tower was the most accurate for the realm and power of a domain. Therefore, the experts who came to Sky City would come here to test their own domain. This domain tower was only useful for experts below the celestial realm. Above the celestial realm and half-saint, the power and level of a domain could not be tested. The domain tower had 10 colors and 99 rays of light. Each ray of light represented a domain. Boom! Another celestial realm expert with 5 chi rising sun walked to the front of the domain tower and threw a punch at it. The fist ray did not look like a domain, but the punch contained a domain. 6 paths domain. On the domain tower, 6 red rays of light flashed. It meant that this celestial realm expert only had 6 paths domains. Boom, boom, boom. In just 15 minutes, hundreds of celestial realm experts had gone to test their domains. However, most of the celestial realm experts only had 6 or 7 domains. There were very few who had dozens of domains. The most powerful one was a celestial realm expert with 38 domains. Lin Yi and Silent Soul looked at the experts and knew what to expect. In terms of domains, he had not seen anyone who could compare with his. Not even Silent Soul could compare. However, Silent Soul was already at the peak of the celestial realm and was only one step away from becoming a half-saint. With 47 domains, he was a genius among geniuses. Let me try. At this moment, a loud voice sounded. Suddenly, countless experts looked in the direction of the voice. When they saw who it was, they could not help but be surprised. On their faces, there was a look of dread. The newcomer was a young man in his late 20s. He was tall and full of explosive power. He had a confident look on his face. Wherever he passed, all the experts subconsciously made way for him. Lin Feng, Celestial Realm. It is said that he had reached 30 domains last time. I wonder what level his domain has reached now. The super genius of the Lin family. He can definitely be in the top 10. Young Master Lin Feng. For a moment, many experts recognized the newcomer. Some of the experts greeted the young man, but the young man was arrogant and ignored them. He just nodded. Soon, Lin Feng arrived in front of the domain tower. On his face, there was a confident smile. With one hand, he threw a punch at the domain tower. Boom! There was an explosion. On the domain tower, 4 lights flashed. Red, orange, yellow, and green. However, there was only one green light. In other words, Lin Feng had 31 domains. Not much progress. Lin Feng looked at his own result. It was exactly the same as the level of his own domain, 31. On his face, the smile was even wider. Although he said that his progress was not much, the smile on his face betrayed him. The Celestial Realm was only one step away from the peak of the Celestial Realm. With 31 domains, he was definitely a monster, but he still pretended to be dissatisfied. Suddenly, many experts curled their lips in disdain. This progress is really not good. You have reached the Celestial Realm, but you only have 31 domains. Just as Lin Feng was enjoying the envious gazes of countless experts, a cold voice sounded. This voice was very harsh, and even made people feel extremely cold. When Lin Feng heard it, his face became very ugly. He had just been pretending, but he did not expect that someone would use his words to provoke him. Obviously, the person just looked down on him. Chapter 246. Yang Yaoyu. Lin Feng's face turned sour when he heard someone mocking him. He was about to get angry, but when he saw that it was Yang Yao who mocked him, he immediately became scared. He didn't dare to say anything else and quickly left the domain tower. All the strong cultivators who were there were sighing when they saw that. But none of them dared to provoke Yang Yao. Yang Yao, a celestial realm cultivator, was definitely a strong cultivator in the celestial realm. Celestial realm cultivator ranking 9810. In the Tianyang Empire, there was a celestial realm cultivator ranking. As long as one reached the celestial realm, they would have a chance to enter the celestial realm cultivator ranking. The stronger they were, the higher their ranking. This Yang Yao was able to enter the top 10,000 when he was a celestial realm cultivator. One could imagine how strong he was and how talented he was. There were more than tens of millions of celestial realm cultivators in the Tianyang Empire. There were two other young, strong cultivators with Yang Yao. They were Ling Dong and Xue Tianyu. Both of them were also on the celestial realm cultivator ranking. Not to mention, both of them had strong backgrounds and support. "Brother Yang, you go first," Ling Dong said to Yang Yao with a smile. The three of them were also here to test their domains. Or rather, they were here to show off. "Brother Ling, don't be so polite. You go first," Yang Yao replied with a smile. "Then I'll be the first." Ling Dong nodded. As he said that, he walked toward the domain tower. Yang Yao and Xue Tianyu looked on with a smile. The three of them were friends and often exchanged pointers, but they didn't know each other's true strength. Now that Ling Dong was going to test his domains, the two of them were very curious. Boom! Ling Dong looked at the domain tower. In the next second, he threw a punch at the domain tower. Suddenly, the space was distorted and shattered. The unparalleled fist slammed into the domain tower. The domain tower exploded with a mysterious light. Red, orange, yellow. In just 2 breaths, Ling Dong's domain had reached the peak of yellow and finally entered the green area. Finally, the light that Ling Dong triggered stopped in the green area of the domain tower. 38 domains. That's right, 38 domains. They were both cultivators of the celestial realm, but Ling Dong's 38 spheres were much stronger than Lin Feng's 31. No wonder Ling Dong looked down on Lin Feng. It was extremely difficult to raise one's domain. In the celestial realm, to be able to cultivate up to 38 domains, he was definitely a monster. 38 Dao fire domains. Too powerful. He actually reached 38 domains. The experts on the celestial being list are indeed extraordinary. Just this domain alone is not something an ordinary celestial being can compare to. Now that he has achieved the Transcendence Golden Body, his domain may reach 50. With 50 domains, my chances of surviving the divine tribulation will be much higher. Around the domain tower, there were over 1,000 experts watching the show. Everyone was shocked when they saw that Ling Dong's domain had reached 38. Countless experts revealed looks of envy and jealousy in their eyes. However, they knew that it was useless to be jealous. Comparisons were odious. Not only were the spectators surprised, even Yang Yao and Xue Tianyu were surprised. They didn't expect Ling Dong to improve so quickly. "Brother Ling, congratulations." "Brother Ling, I didn't expect you to hide so well." After Ling Dong left the domain tower, he returned to Yang Yao and Xue Tianyu. "Brother Yang, do you want to try?" Ling Dong smiled. He asked Yang Yao, "I think I'd better not. It's hard to improve during this period of time." Yang Yao waved his hand, looking cold and confident. As he spoke, he couldn't help but exclaim. His eyes were in high spirits, as if he had seen a peerless treasure. He was almost stunned. His expression was also very interesting. "Brother Yang, peerless beauty." When Ling Dong and Xue Tianyu saw Yang Yao's expression, they couldn't help but be stunned. They followed Yang Yao's gaze. The two of them saw a peerless beauty. This woman was wearing a light pink veil. Her face was beautiful, and her figure was perfect. She was a masterpiece of the heavens. She gave off a holy and charming aura that made all the men in the world go crazy for her. They had seen countless goddess-like beauties, but compared to the woman in front of them, they were not just a little bit inferior. For a moment, the three of them were stunned by the woman in front of them. The other experts also followed their gazes when they noticed the three's expressions and movements. Like the three of them, they were all stunned. "Young master, let's go." When Silent Spirit saw countless gazes sweeping over, he immediately felt uncomfortable. He spoke softly to Lin Yi. "Okay, let's go." Lin Yi nodded and prepared to leave with Silent Soul. This was not the fault of the experts present. The main reason was that Silent Spirit was too beautiful, devastatingly beautiful. There was no man in the world that didn't go crazy for her. Even he himself was stunned by Silent Soul's appearance and temperament. However, he had cultivated the 3,000 Tao of heaven His mind was strong, his state of mind was stable, and Silent Soul was always by his side, so he gradually gained some immunity. Sir, wait. Since you came here, don't you want to test it? Yang Yao saw that Silent Soul and Lin Yi were about to leave and immediately reacted. He quickly spoke. At this moment, all the experts woke up, but the stunned look on their faces was even more intense. There's no need for that. Lin Yi smiled and said. His eyes glanced at Yang Yao. In the celestial being realm, 9 by 9 became 1. Powerful. However, in front of Lin Yi, he could crush him with one hand. Needless to say, this Yang Yao had his eyes on solitary spirit. Oh, is that so? Yang Yao smiled. The look on his face was extremely disdainful. In his opinion, Lin Yi didn't dare to embarrass himself at all. Indeed, Lin Yi was just a young man who had just reached the celestial realm. Not to mention the realm, he might only have 70 to 80% of the realm. In that case, naturally, he wouldn't test the realm. The other experts, hearing Lin Yi's words, had the same thought as Yang Yao. They thought that Lin Yi was too weak to test it. What do you think? Silent Soul saw that Lin Yi didn't have any intention to speak, so she spoke. After speaking, she took Lin Yi's arm and was about to leave the realm tower. Fairy, you're so beautiful. I didn't expect you to be willing to follow a trash. Shui Tianyu said loudly, then laughed loudly. At the same time, Yang Yao and Ling Dong also laughed. The other experts who were watching the show also had a look of schadenfreude on their faces. Trash? You haven't tested it yet. Maybe you're the trash instead. Silent Soul heard Shui Tianyu call Lin Yi trash and suddenly felt bad. If they weren't in Sky City, she would definitely reach out and crush Shui Tianyu to death. A mere 9 to 1 was completely vulnerable in front of her. If it weren't for the realm in shackles, she would have reached the half-saint realm. She believed that in the celestial realm, no one could beat Lin Yi in the realm. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.